Welcome back to Bass Fishing Dive Bar. We've got a special guest in studio with Curt today. Got a couple special guests, but I'm going to introduce our first special guest, Marcus and Njedlo. I had the pleasure of meeting Marcus. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago, I think, when I went up and fished with Curt for a few days. And Marcus used to be in the industry. He's held the titles of manager, buyer, inventory. He was with a rep group. He was in retail detail. He was an associate rep for Ranger Stratus. Grew up fishing since about 5 years old. Started fishing tournaments at about 17. You've known and put up with Curt for longer than I have. So you're a saint in that regard.
We all have our crosses to bear. Yeah. And
so you go ahead.
Yeah, just kind of and part of that too was watching the growth and development of Dirty Jigs Tackle and having that industry experience. I mean, I think I helped you establish your first pricing structure, from retail through distributor and wholesale. And Curt had me working with the Grassroots Pro staff for a while too. I was the first social media guy on that too, before we handed that off and got that growing. So Curt helped me stay involved in the industry every time I thought I wanted to be totally peeled out of it. But yeah, and then through that too, there was a lot of relationships that got built, and probably wouldn't have had an interest in meeting you when you came out here otherwise, so it was really good to meet another guy that had the Dirty Jig stuff and just kept going from there.
Yeah, because you two would have first communicated through him managing the pro staff, correct?
Yeah, I think we probably reached out. You told me to reach out to him, and then it happened that Adam was coming out.
No, I think Marcus was before that.
Okay.
Oh,
for sure. Because I didn't start doing that until a couple of years after you and I got hooked up, Curt. And Marcus was already well integrated into the business by the time I came around, I think.
No, that's what I mean. Like that would have been your first involvement with him would have been when he was running the pro staff.
Oh, when he was running the pro staff. Got it.
Yeah.
So I basically, okay.
Yeah.
I took over those emails after he quit.
Yeah. Because Adam did that for a while as well.
Nice. Yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see some stuff handling those emails.
Right.
We should do a podcast just on that.
Trash. Hey, Curt, this one's interesting. 10 more trash.
10.
There was way more that were interesting because they were entertaining to read than they were.
For sure.
Yeah.
There were some really good ones, but there was a lot of trash.
Yeah.
Well, you started fishing at a pretty young age. Started fishing tournaments at 17, like I said, and you got out of it for a while. How long ago did you quit?
I think this recent time coincided with my kids. Got married, and we have 4 kids total, and spent a lot of time. I was doing some hockey coaching and stuff like that, and then now my youngest 2 are in high school. I've got a sophomore and a senior, so you can only do so many things and make sure that the scales are balanced pretty well. So being gone all winter and then being gone all summer probably wasn't working out that well for my wife, and I wanted to spend some time with my kids, and they're great, and I really enjoy being a dad too. And let's see, Carter's 18, so it was probably about 10 years ago, roughly.
Yeah, you were out for, we were talking about with
8 years.
Yeah. When you quit, there was no spot lock.
Right. Spot lock was a thing. We didn't have it.
Yeah. It was just in the like power drives, Tarovas, Alteras type of stuff.
Yeah.
So you got out right at probably the beginning of the biggest innovation movement in the sport.
Absolutely.
Did we have mega side imaging?
Yeah. Remember
It was just Mega. I think Mega just came out.
And we had a Lowrance unit too, and that's when Lowrance's down came out, and it was really, really good compared to what we had at that point in time too.
Do you remember having Solixes on the boat?
We were running one of each.
We were running Lowrance and then Helixes, or we were running Helixes and Solixes.
Oh, we were running Helix and a Lowrance.
Yeah.
Because that down imaging came out, and we talk about. I started fishing young. My parents had a place up in Door County, Wisconsin, just south of Sturgeon Bay. So, did a lot of perch fishing as a kid and walleye fishing, and locating that was all reading sonar, trying to see the perch coming up off the bottom just enough, and you get a bigger school and it would blow up a little bit and come back down or whatever. So we were video gaming before it was cool. I mean, we were 2D on our drop shot back at that point in time when you could still get on top of them a little bit more. They seem to be
now you can't. You
seem
can't
to be
get
a
over
little
top of them in 20 feet of water in the bay.
They seem to be a little sonar shy or what have you. But when that down imaging came out and we had the ability to see things in that kind of detail, that's when we should have known that things were probably going to start going at a breakneck speed as far as the technology goes. But that was probably the biggest innovation that I saw before I stepped away for a while.
Yeah, we had that Champion together, and that had the original Lowrance side imaging, the one that they had to stop producing because of the lawsuit. And that at that time was actually really good.
Yeah.
And we were definitely Lowrance guys for sure. And then when they made, I want to say it was the original Mega Live, not the Mega Live Plus or anything, Hummingbird. It was like, how is anybody going to touch this? And honestly, we haven't seen, I don't think we've seen major clarity improvements or detail improvements from anybody in side imaging since the original Mega Live. We see more detail at distance, but when Garmin's come on, you see
mega side imaging.
Yeah.
I think the focus changed, right? Like, okay, this is cool, and a lot of people have it, and I don't know if we're going to be able to continue to get people upgrading on this. So, obviously, with forward-facing and live sonar, that and even 360, the opportunities to do the advancements in technology just kind of started writing themselves, right? Like, how much clearer do we need to get side imaging versus how much should we put our research into the next forward looker?
For sure.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, since I got back into a boat and been fishing again, as cool as the sonar technology is, and I do think it's cool, and there's all kinds of sides to that conversation about where it belongs and where it doesn't, and who should and who shouldn't, and so on and so forth. The coolest thing in the boat for me is spot lock. I love spot lock. You can sit down, retie, you can put rods away, you can take rods out, you can sit down and have a sandwich, you can take care of things that normally would be challenging to take care of. No problem. Hit that little button. I love that. I'd give up just about every other technology just to keep spot lock.
I've got a spare Fortrex trolling motor without the bracket laying in the garage here, and I've been going back and forth. Do I want to keep it as a spare? Because it'll go on the mount that I've got, because I've got an Ultrex. I'm like, do I want to keep that thing as a spare for the road, or do I want to just sell the damn thing? And if I have a problem with the trolling motor, go to a dealer, buy a trolling motor, and put a new Ultrex on it. Like, and I think that's what I'm going to do, because if I caught myself in the middle of a tournament, having an Ultrex, that thing going out, I'd be holding that Fortrex in my hand going, I don't want this freaking thing on the boat.
You'd probably still end up going to a dealer and buying an Ultrex.
It would. I would, for sure. Because going that far back to fishing in 30, 40 mile an hour winds or whatever, and having to control your boat constantly while you're trying to retie or drifting 40, 50 yards off of a spot and then idling back up. No, I'll pay the $3,000 for a new trolling motor.
Yeah, somebody
sure.
needs that Ford Trucks, Adam.
Yeah,
It's not you, but somebody
It's
on
not me.
Marketplace or something needs that.
For sure.
you don't have a bracket for it?
No, I got it from a friend of mine,
Yeah.
probably 9 years ago, and he took it off, and I don't know. I think he might have bought the Ultrex without
What
the bracket
shaft
or
length
something.
is
I
it?
don't know what he did. I think it's a 55.
A 45 or a 52?
I'm not sure.
What were those the same?
Is it 52?
50,
Might be 52.
45 or 52. I was gonna.
I think it's 52.
I
think it's the longer one.
I have an old Ultrex bracket here for 52. It's the one with the weaker piston in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that bracket here. Sort of keep it for the same reason. What if I break my bracket?
Yeah. Probably ain't gonna happen, but
you just go home, right, Marcus?
Yes, you go home.
You go home.
Exactly.
Let's be done.
Yeah. You need a chiropractor adjustment, a handful of Advil, probably something strong to chase the Advil down with, and a new trolling motor setup. You don't.
Yep.
If you broke that joker out there that day, you didn't need to be out there.
Exactly. So yeah, you've seen since you stepped out, the sport has completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's totally different. You're basically starting from square one. Yeah, you got the knowledge. You have the knowledge from, years experience prior, but you're pretty much having to relearn the game to be as efficient as a lot of the anglers are these days.
Yeah, I think there's efficiency gains, obviously, with the technology, but I think it's to some extent, man, I think it's overstated about the degree to which the technology makes you that much better. Like you still got to catch them. Like you still have to identify what it is that they're doing. You got, we talk about forward facing sonar. We got to identify what kind of fish it is. And in our lakes here, that smorgasbord is wide open. That is the golden corral of fish species that we're sitting there looking at and trying to identify. And if you lock into that method, and you're sitting there, you're trying to look at fish and trying to identify what they are. And if you convince yourself that that blob looks like the last bass that you caught, and you're going to sit there and there's 5 of those blobs out there now that you think is a smallmouth or a largemouth, what have you, you aren't efficient anymore. You have to have this combination of fish knowledge and understanding what is and what isn't, how they're feeding, how they're not, what's making them activate, what's not. Because if you're just watching blobs on a screen, especially where we live,
if they're comparable size, so
yeah,
like walleyes don't. I think walleyes look different. I don't know. You might know a little better. You've been spending a little more time on Bago, but like sheephead, they'll fool you. Like I can tell if it's a sheephead better with my side imaging than I can off of the forward-facing sonar.
Yeah, I think the thing
walleyes, almost the same thing. It's just walleyes is like their top to bottom is different, but a walleye directly in your cone angle looks not a whole lot different than a largemouth or a smallmouth during the summer period.
Mm-hmm.
That's off the side of your cone angle. So you gotta, the guys that are really good at it, which I don't claim to be by any means, and I know you don't either, but like out by you, what do you got to worry about? Carp and bass.
See, well, I was going to mention the first time we got a couple lakes with gizzard shad in them, and these 2 lakes, they've got gizzards damn near up to 3 pounds. They might even have some 3-pounders in there. And the first time I was at one of those places, I'm looking at the screen going, dude, that fish is 5 pounds or bigger. They show up big on the screen just because of how tall top to bottom they are. And I'm seeing these fish swim and I'm like, that's a freaking 5-pound fish. Why are they moving so much? And then all of a sudden one swims up into shallow water and I'm following it. I'm like, oh, they're gizzards. they don't stop swimming.
Yeah.
So instantly you recognize that. It's like, okay, if that fish doesn't stop swimming, gizzard, and you just keep panning. So you recognize those things. Once you realize what's going on, you recognize those things. And for the rest of the day, you pan, see a fish moving like that. Okay, move on to the next one. That's not a bass. So you do have to learn that kind of stuff for sure.
Have you got on
But
any
other than
big
that, yeah,
perch?
you're right. Carp.
Big perch will fool you too here. You know, I mean, yeah, you don't think that they're a 5-pound largemouth, but a lot of bodies water we're fishing, we're not a crappie.
Yeah, fishing for fives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A 13-inch crappie, you think it's a bass because again, it's so tall. Yeah, I think there's a stronger learning curve in the north because of that diversity of fish species.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pike and muskie, you can tell.
Sturgeon, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Sturgeon.
Yeah.
Looks like a shark on your screen.
Yeah, you got a shark or a torpedo attached to your line. I was fishing with a friend of ours, and we were out there, and both of us, like a couple casts apart, had gigantic sturgeon on. And you get them in the cone, and you're like, it's pretty obvious that you're either under attack or you got a sturgeon on. It's so cool to see that stuff, though. Like, I think that's one of the coolest things about the technology that's out there is you get to see so much more about how, even like when I was telling Curt, I was out on a body of water that we used to fish quite a bit. And one of the coolest bites I've seen so far on forward-facing sonar, wrong species, was a northern pike that came up and ate my jerkbait. But I'm just working my jerkbait through, and tight to the bottom, all of a sudden there was just this absolute blast up and straight back down, and getting to see that and feel that bite at the same time. Like, not every fish follows. Like, they sit there watching your cats.
Mm-hmm.
They sit there and just boom, boom, just follow that so quickly, and understanding the importance of a pause in your bait, or in your presentation, or watching that fish behavior to see if you need to keep that bait moving or what it is. I think that's awesome. I think that part of it is really, really cool. I wish I would have had that when I was fishing jerk baits a lot. Oh my gosh.
There's so many days that I can think back to me and you fishing jerk baits on the bay, where I would have loved to seen that, because that was always the thing. You always hoped if you weren't throwing the right bait, you were throwing it good, the right enough bait that you could see them halfway back to the boat. And that was the magic about learning how to jerk bait fish on the Bay of Green Bay, is you could see your bait half your cast, and you could see a fish reacting to your twitches, your pauses. You could see what your bait did. That's where with live, you don't get that left and right movement. You don't get to see that, but you can see how a fish is reacting. You're learning so much faster. Like, you start playing with some of these newer baits and stuff that you don't have experience with. That's, I think, the secret sauce of forward-facing sonar. It isn't going to be, in 10 years, I don't think it's going to be all about sniping fish, finding an isolated fish, catching on a jig in a minnow. I don't think that's going to be its ultimate value. I think the ultimate value is going to be how fast we all learn what those fish are doing and how they're reacting. Like with a jerk bait, am I around fish? Are they not following it at all? Am I not around fish? Those are the questions you ask. With forward-facing sonar, you can have that figured out on any individual cast you make once you're around fish.
We spent legitimately, there were days that we were fishing, we probably spent 3 or 4 hours of the day trying to find the right cadence. We were in areas, look, there were high percentage areas for pre-spawn smallmouth. There were the right points, the right inlets, right ditches, right rocks, everything else like that. Like, the odds of smallmouth being there at that point in time, super high percentage spots. And we would work it and take a drift down, take another drift down, and be like, man, they're here. Or we'd get one random.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would take us hours to work and find the right cadence, because even with the right colored bait, there were days that those twitches mattered, or the pull mattered, or the pause mattered. Like some days you couldn't leave those things sit there long enough. A Lucky Craft pointer 128s. Like here's the appropriate action for a 128 in northern Door County when they're a little finicky. Cast out an Aurora Red. Work it down. One long jerk. Sit down. Eat half a sandwich. Stand back up. Pull it again. Finish sandwich. Check rod. Like they were just so incredibly finicky and picky to that exact movement. Forward-facing sonar has shrunk that curve. That's what's changed in fishing, tournament-wise, knowledge-wise, catch rate-wise. Forward-facing sonar absolutely changed that. Side imaging helped change that. It helped us understand where they were related to. I think everybody understood what points were for and what humps were for and what an inside turn was and what a saddle was. What side imaging did that I don't think people talk about enough or consciously realize is it showed us where they positioned on those things a lot more than what we understood. Like fish are on a point. Okay. Well, how do they relate to that point? Well, side imaging started showing us how the bait fish were setting up on that point, and then how our bass were setting up on that point, or sitting in a saddle. Do they ride down into the saddle? Do they pull up in the saddle? Like all those things with side imaging, and people, I don't know if less people are using side imaging now. Like I use it a ton, but it taught us so much about how fish were positioning. And then people are recording all this stuff. Like the stuff that you would hope was in Bassmaster sometime in the calendar year, if that right article would come out, there are 47 videos on it right now on YouTube that have been made in the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No. Talk about younger anglers and it's the technology. Yes, it is absolutely the technology, but it's not just what's attached to their boat. It's what's in their hands. It's what comes across on the laptop. You would read articles about, when the pros of old, we have a guide up in Door County who was a tournament walleye fisherman for a long time. His dad was super passionate about what he did, and his dad had folders for every possible lake that the walleye circuit was at that point in time, for whatever pro-am, a PWT or what have you, whatever it could have been. But he had folders, and he would painstakingly go through just about every publication that he could get on, and he would cut articles out from tournament results. If there was a guy talking about a certain presentation, it happened to be on that body of water, so he would have this manila folder of all this information for all these places. I used to, when I had my Bassmaster magazine, I had an index of what article was in what edition, so I could go back through it and have them tabbed.
And you couldn't just search that database. You had to page through a database you created to go find the article in what,
Yeah, I'd open my binder and I'd have it like crankbaits, jigs, soft plastics, topwater, and I'd flip open the topwater section, and then I'd start going through, and you'd have different types of topwater, and go through and May of 1992, you'd have to go in there, page 57. Well, dude, type in a search bar of whatever your search engine is, and you have so many video options of what comes up. Yes, of course, people that are accessing the information are getting better at this quicker. The example is there. Right.
And you see the youngest anglers having the most up-to-date stuff. They don't have kids yet. They don't have all this other stuff. They've been competitively bass fishing since they were, middle school age. A lot of them.
A lot of them every single day.
Yeah. So then
and I don't know how many times it needs to be said, time on the water is the most valuable thing that you can have in bass fishing. So, yeah.
It used to be that it wasn't until you were in your 30s to mentally be honed tournament-wise, be in a mental place to be consistent competitor, and that time on the water. Yeah, they got these kids nowadays, no matter what technology they have at their fingertips, they got to speed all to hell on how fast they've learned.
These are first world problems, right? Like
Yeah.
kids getting opportunities in bass boats that weren't there before. And, there's hate out there because of these kids running around in these boats and everything else like that. You know what? I try and do the best that I can for my kids. And if that was something that I was able to do for them, and that's what it took to chase their dream and their passion, I'm going to do it, and I will not apologize for it. There's a lot of kids that nothing about their story. We are so commonly doing book reports, and all we've done is looked at the front cover and read the back cover. You don't know what's going on in these families. You don't know if that kid started working at 14 years old and saved everything, and maybe his parents matched what he put into it or whatever. There was no college fishing opportunities.
Yeah.
But there's kids going and getting educations and getting real scholarship dollars for this. So are you going to blame them for getting good at it? Which sport hasn't gotten younger? Which one?
Yeah.
And there's a loud guy on the internet that has a lot of irritation for the technology that's out there. And he happens to like bowling. He has trophies in his background on his YouTube clips about bowling. Now, if you go back and look at that sport as well, the technology inside of a bowling ball, the cover of a bowling ball has changed significantly. And oh my goodness, when they had young guys coming out that weren't throwing a bowling ball in a traditional manner. Well, somebody went to try and find a way to do it better. They put the time in and they put the effort in and they got really good at it. But they were hated on for the same thing. Golf got younger. Tiger Woods changed that game. Now technology has limits in golf. But you know what changed in golf? Go back and watch when Tiger Woods, and just look at the physical conditioning of the people that were on the PGA at that point in time. Has that sport got younger? Yes. Has it got more physically fit? Yes.
100%.
The NFL. The NFL, one of the things that people say it stands for, not for long. 3.5 years is the average career in the NFL. That technology, the helmets have come a long way. Should we go back to leather helmets? No, absolutely not. But that's a young man's game too. Like all these things, the people that become great in these sports have longevity in the sport because they're really talented at what they do. They deal with the changes. They learn what they have to do to adapt and succeed. If that's consuming more information, the best quarterbacks in the NFL don't just show up on Sunday and play. They have practices throughout the week. When they aren't at practice, they're looking at film of what the opposing defense is going to do. They're always studying. They're always doing the research.
In the off season, they're watching film.
And the body work that they're going through. The weightlifting program that I had in high school looks absolutely nothing like the weightlifting program my kids have now. So I don't love where all the technology has gone for tournament fishing. I actually am a fan of how Bassmaster split it up this year. I've enjoyed watching it. I'm a fan of the sport, and maybe I'm in the minority where I learn as much during the forward-facing tournaments because I'm watching their screens and I'm watching how the fish are reacting to the baits they're throwing because I'm taking advantage of the situation that's being put out in front of me. Like, hey, they're doing something that I normally wouldn't do or whatever, and I get to see how the fish are reacting. I don't have to be out there, so it's something I could try. Watching, we're recording this on a Sunday, and the Champlain event is going on right now. This weekend has been great. They've been doing all kinds of old school techniques. Well, no, and then the camera starts popping into Chris Johnston's boat, and guess what's on there? Well, we got an urchin style bait on there. We got guys that are taking all these new things and they're going out, they're using it to the best of their abilities. Like, if you can't hate the things that are making the sport better. In order for the sport to advance, it has to get better. Otherwise, we stay in the same spot, which they have. $100,000 payout. I can't tell you the last time the winner hasn't gotten $100,000. Decades.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I don't know. That's a long, rambling answer about a lot of things that have changed. But man, every sport has gotten younger. Some of the guys that have chosen to exit, and some of it, they're being forced out by technology. No, you're being forced out because, thank goodness, the sport has gotten younger.
Someone's there for your spot.
Yes.
And they took it.
Yes. Just like every other sport. You want to be a major sport instead of a fringe sport, you have to have turnover. You have to have your greats be great, and you have to have the next best thing coming. Every time. Every time. If
the sport didn't get younger, that means that new people aren't coming into the sport, and the sport's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I've listened to every show, and Curt and I have had industry talks, and I get to talk to some other people, and the concern about the industry was on the tackle sales side that it was just going to become this minute amount of tackle that was going on. I don't know. I'm looking at what's trending now and the things that are out there. That also was a trend. Like that was the hot ticket for a period of time.
It's coming back around. That's something Adam and I've talked about a bunch where, he's like, can we do a Carolina rig video? Because it's going to come back around. Guys are going to use that at some point in time. It's going to come back around. You already got guys talking about that they're seeing fish on scope and they're making that cast with a jig, not a jig head minnow. Thankfully that's been a short-term issue with the forward-facing sonar, the jig head minnow, because like when we had Brooks on here, I don't remember if it was actually on the podcast or prior to, but Brooks and I both talked about how that jig head minnow thing, if that stays relevant, that stays the deal. So anytime you have forward-facing sonar, that's going to be the predominant winning pattern or tackle choice. It's going to, in the industry, it's just going to be a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're seeing it.
We talked in the episode.
Yeah, so we see it here because most of the country doesn't. But the pro walleye fishing stuff, there's becoming a big divide there on, do we get rid of live bait? That's been hinted and talked about a bunch of different times, but I think it's even more prevalent now because it's being dominated by a jig head and a crawler. And you tell me how those fish are going to get conditioned to a jig head and a crawler. It's a piece of real meat. Like, There's a reason why bass fishing years ago they got rid of live bait, and more of these pros are talking about on the walleye side. They practice with plastics and artificials. They don't monkey around, but then come tournament day, are you going to throw a jig head and a crawler on your fish, or are you going to throw a tube or a swim bait? No, you're going to throw a jig head and a crawler.
Yeah.
Especially walleyes where midday they just sort of sit and hunker down and they're not actively feeding per se.
I wonder if they could throw an Alabama rig for walleyes.
Depends on the state.
Yeah.
Oh, that's been talked about at work a handful of times.
I'm good at it.
You are good at catching walleyes on the old A-rig.
Man, I might have caught more walleyes on the A-rig than I did bass.
You did. You definitely did. And the dangest thing is there's this fish that's supposed to be so finicky and so picky, and he's in the front of the boat throwing that dang A-rig, and I'm just watching him reel this thing in, and he's like, there's one found, and I'm like, I can see it from the side, right? Yeah, it's a walleye. And you watch that walleye that's supposed to be so picky, so finicky, come up and just keep blasting on it until it gets one with a hook in it.
Yeah.
Keeps trying to eat it, can't get a bite of anything, and just until it finally gets a hook stuck in his face.
Multi-species weapon.
Yeah. Pike like it.
Sometimes we give these fish too much credit.
Absolutely.
I think back to that whole financial thing that you were talking about with the kids, right? How much does travel ball cost?
Oh,
dude. I won't do it.
How much? You got travel ball for baseballs and softball. Soccer, they got the same stuff going on, right?
lacrosse, buddy.
Yep.
Lacrosse.
Hockey.
All of
You
it.
know, like the one kid I work with at Sportomotive, I mean, he's a hockey kid.
Yeah.
Talking about having sponsor families and this and that. And it's like, holy cow, you know, this is insane. But you know what? When that's all said and done, what do you got? If you buy a boat, let's say your kids were in fishing. One, you get to spend time with your kids in that boat. You get to partake in things, right? Adam, you do this with your kids. As time goes on, kids get older, they move on from it. You know, not everybody goes and has dreams of being a pro. They enjoy doing it when they do it, but you know, real life happens after college or whatever, whether they stick. What do you have? You now have a thing you invested in that you can actually get money back out of.
Yep.
So what's your cost to play if you're buying a boat for $100,000? You got all this fishing tackle, and after 6 years, you turn around and sell it for 50. Well, you only invested 50, not 100.
Right.
You know, plus it's something you can do the rest of your life. How many people do you see running around at 30 years old playing field hockey or lacrosse or regular hockey, or, you know, you get a handful of guys that play softball. You know, Adam dusted off the old bones and got out playing baseball again or softball, but that's not very many
the first
people.
couple games and picked it back up. I'm actually hitting pretty good now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. We talk about the young kids, you know, not necessarily even with the money, but the opportunity. I was afforded that opportunity with my dad. My dad came out here from Ohio and with the Navy, and in the late 70s joined a club. And me growing up, I was 10 years old fishing with the club guys. You know, there weren't a lot of kids that had that opportunity. And nowadays it doesn't look like that anymore. It's not growing up fishing against a club with adults. You got kids clubs. Like here in San Diego, we got SoCal Junior Bass Anglers. I show up. Well, I didn't this year because I was so busy with baseball and stuff like that. But in years past, I've shown up once a month, provided my boat, taken 2 kids out fishing for the day with that technology. And that's all across the US now. You got kids clubs competing against each other, fishing national championships against each other, and going and fishing Bassmaster events because of it. It's not even talking about the college fishing. You know, kids are going to college on scholarship to fish every single day. The colleges don't provide the boats. You have to provide your own boat, but that opportunity wasn't there either when we were growing up.
You know, one of the things that's really wild to me with the high school and the collegiate fishing is you look at the size of those tournament fields, and the fact that these kids are willing to go rub rail to rub rail on these bodies of water because there's 300 boats.
Yeah.
The people that are complaining the loudest about the technology won't go fish a tournament that's got 30 boats in it, or they won't stay in the club that they've been getting their butts handed to them because somebody else is better and they spin off and go do their own thing. These kids are going out there and cutting their teeth, and I don't care if they have forward-facing sonar or don't. If you're fishing a tournament with 300 boats on a body of water that could support 2, and you're going out there and you're winning, like some of these guys on the top level, it doesn't matter where they go. I'm talking collegiately, right? The Nut Brothers, that whole thing that's going on with where they go to school, like they get these kids that are unbelievable anglers. They win no matter where it is. It doesn't matter how many boats are out there. They're doing it. You're going to tell me they're not good fishermen? Or are you afraid of the fact that they got that much better than you because you sat there and thought you were good enough? Like I go out fishing now, and like a lot of bodies of water I go to are not trophy lakes. But you know what? I go out there after being on the road all week and traveling and spend some time with my family and whatnot. I go out there. I enjoy the day. I enjoy the challenge of trying to find out what those fish are doing. Some days I question my decision about trying to get back into this bass fishing thing, period, because you can't get them to go. And then there's other days you put 20 pounds on the scale at a place where maybe you shouldn't. And I always wish that I'd be good enough that people thought I was cheating. You hear we've had guys around here all the time that went, no matter where it was in our circuits around here, they would win. They would be in the top 5. I just listened to another bass fishing podcast, and Corey Johnston was on. And there's guys in Canada that want Chris and Corey banned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're really good fishermen. And I'm not going to blame anybody for going out and trying to win a few extra $1,000. And if you're sitting there in the position where you're pitting yourself against that person, going, I really want to beat them, you're already in trouble.
Yep.
You're not fishing the day. You're not fishing the moment. You're not. There's guys that I always would like to beat more than others because it meant that I had a really good day. But if your sole purpose is to go out there and beat Curt on the Wolf River, Curt's already got you. If back in the day, if you were going out to the bay, Shawano Lake, and your hope was to beat Chad and Caleb,
Caleb and I just talked about that.
Yeah, you're going out there and focusing and beating on them, and you see their boat running around at 30 miles an hour, taking a victory lap at 10:30. You're already in trouble. You might as well put it on the trailer. You gotta do what you can with what you got.
Mm-hmm.
None of it matters. And I've learned this watching Bassmaster Live the last few years. How many of these guys fish until the last minute and they get the fish that matters in the last 5 minutes?
100%.
Last 3 minutes. They keep going. You got to keep grinding. Can't blame everybody else for your deficiencies.
Okay.
That's society in general.
I will say one thing that has really rattled some cages with the younger anglers versus the old anglers, right? Caleb and I were just talking about this on Monday. We're talking about them years on Shawano. And you were party to some of these occasions on the bay and on Shawano, where they knew where their fish were and they left them alone, but all of a sudden 2 guys that couldn't leave fish ever, once they started cracking on them, would go out there. You start to have some memories?
Not at all.
No. Marcus is the worst leave him beat guy you ever meet, besides Big Chad, probably. But nobody else, when you had that, right? Like, just like you and your club, I'm sure years ago it was somebody'd find a spot or do really good on a spot a handful of times, and that was their spot. Everybody else let them have that spot. It was your job to find something better than theirs. Nowadays, that doesn't happen. One, you don't have that long, drawn out, like you cut your teeth and eventually get there. You don't see that anymore. It used to be a big, like, Wapta's like a club.
Mm-hmm.
It's big open circuit. It's a big pay your entry fee, show up that day, but it almost is like a club. Years ago, you had that like protection that if you were good and you fished a certain area, everybody else left it alone. Nowadays, all the bets are off. There is no protection. So like Caleb and I were talking about, where they were so dominant for so long on a specific spot, they didn't have to practice on it, because if they figured out over the years that they were always there, and no one ever messed with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You remember,
in my time. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I know you remember the times of, don't go in that corner of the lake because that's Chad and Caleb's spot. You literally did not mess with it because, God forbid, you got caught even looking at it. like other people would talk shit about you for being there.
Yeah.
Because you didn't
see
you never even went and looked at it just to see what it was that they were fishing. Right?
Yep.
Like it was once somebody won there consistently, that spot was off limits to everybody else. That was a respect thing. And you just left it alone because you never found it and they did. It was like your buddy was married to that spot. Like you don't flirt with your buddy's wife, right? That's what it used to be like. That is not how it is anymore when it comes to fishing local stuff and spots and everything. It is. If someone sees you on a spot, that's as good as known. If that's your best spot, boy, nowadays I don't go fishing when I think I'm going to get seen on certain areas. I won't fish them because you just gave it away. It used to be, please see me there, because if I did good in the last tournament or I do good in the next tournament, I now have planted my flag on that spot and it's mine and I own it. You know, to the point where the state's probably going to try to charge you tax for it.
In my time here, that never really took place. Before my time, that might have been the case. But here, a lot of our lakes are so spot specific that it was never your spot.
Mm-hmm.
I won a tournament here with my brother. I think I was probably 17, 18 years old, probably 18. And it was funny because I was working for my dad. My dad was running the ABA team tournaments here, and I was working the computer during the weigh-in. So we had to be 30 minutes early to the first flight coming in to set up the computers and stuff. So what my dad did was we always pulled chips for our draw number. Well, he put them into flights. My brother and I would always draw out of the first flight because we're coming in 30 minutes earlier than everybody else. If we drew third flight, you know, we're losing 45 minutes of fishing time rather than 30 minutes, or, you know, maybe even an hour. So, but we would never draw our own chips. There's an older guy in town, Buck, that would always draw my chips at the tackle shop when we were doing our draws. And he drew us number one. And I looked at my brother because I had practiced that day, and I found a spot that I wound like 3 consecutive casts. I threw a big worm out, threw a jig out, and I threw a Carolina rig out, and I wound these fish to the boat. 3.5 pounder, 4.5 pounder, 5.5 pounder. Didn't set the hook on them. Like, they were eating so good they held onto it all the way to the boat. So I cut the leader off my Carolina rig, threw it out there, and they're eating the 1 ounce weight. Like, my dad was on the water that day while I was practicing. He was with a friend of his. I said, "Watch this." I throw a 1 ounce weight out there with a bead and a swivel, and the thing's just swimming off with it. So when we drew number one, I looked at my brother and said, "We won this tournament." And my brother's like, "Don't say that. Don't jinx us." Well, dude, we went through probably 40, 50 fish that day and won the tournament. The following weekend, you know how many boats were on that spot? 10. All casting from every single angle. Like, it was ridiculous. And that's just how it was. And that's how it is today. When people find out that there's fish on a spot, I don't care if somebody won it on the weekend prior, it's not your spot. And as far as I remember going back, that was never the case. It was cutthroat. If the fish were there,
was that a spot that everybody knew about prior? You just happened to figure out that the fish were there?
Our lakes are small enough that everybody knows about every spot.
Yeah. And you don't have
so nothing's sacred.
So like
we have vegetation in some of our lakes, but you know, not the lakes that I'm talking about specifically.
Yeah. So like Shawano Lake, sometimes that's just that year. The weed grows a certain way. And somebody found something unique that year and you've seen them on it. Like, it wasn't everybody that would respect it, but there was enough other people that respecting it that if you got caught once doing something, like, you got educated real quick, like, hey, leave this alone, right?
Yeah. And, you know, was that the right way or the wrong way or whatever?
No, I don't like when people find a spot because they've been pole patterned it.
Road runners.
Yeah. You
know, they're going by and you're fishing a spot and you hear beep beep on their GPS. Yeah.
But like the Bay, I know there were some times where people all of a sudden did something different. You know, if somebody saw someone on the secret cedars and they brought a big bag in, well, everybody knows about the secret cedars, right? So everybody would go there, you know. But if all of a sudden you were like, oh, you know, so-and-so was way out there on Larson's for the spring open, and no one's ever really done good doing that, and all of a sudden they bring in a giant bag, there's not very many people that are going to run out for day two and try to rub elbows with them for it.
No, and there was guys that were having some success up on Monument for a long time.
Yeah.
Fishing that. But, you know, you'd go through that and even to the degree that people would get cranky if you were on a hump that they happened to find. I mean, we talk about Larson's Reef, and for your reference, it's a big rock shoal out in the middle of the Bay of Green Bay in the Sturgeon Bay area. Huge. And mapping has gotten a lot better where it has made that learning curve a lot shorter too. I mean, you used to drive around, and I mean, I'm talking back when I had a 14-foot deep V Mirocraft with a depth finder, and we were triangulating spots off of trees. And this spot is right, where that one tree line just south of the fire tower comes down and meets the other one, not the first two tree lines, but the second and the third one. You got to look back at that one, and then you can kind of look back in, because it's about 1.5 miles off the shore of the bay we came out of. Like, you kind of look in and you see where the resort is. You got to go to the red and white cabin just to the left of the resort, and then you're kind of just inside the tip of Snake Island, like way back in those days, and you'd find those humps. I was back when we were fishing together, and we were running around in the Champion, and you had difficulties with this too, and I'm out there on humps like, how'd you find this hump? What do you mean, how'd I find this hump? I was either moving around with my electronics and found it, the mapping got better, or by the way, my parents have a place 1.2 miles that way that I've been fishing out here since I was 6 years old with people. Like, yep. I might have already come across this spot. Like, people get really cranky for a long time about my spots. There was a spot with Chad and Caleb for sure on Shauna Lake that was their spot, and for whatever reason, they got to hold on to it for as long as they did. And good for them for doing it. But I'll tell you another thing. They went to a lot of the spots where I was fishing that were kind of my spots and spots that you were. And lo and behold, they caught them better than other people that did there too. Yeah. Part of it is they were really good fishermen.
They were really good.
And they put their time
in. Doing stuff like days where it was flat calm and a lot of guys wouldn't go fishing because it doesn't pay. You're not going to catch much.
They spent every day.
They're out there, and they weren't the only ones doing it, but they're out there on a step ladder before sight imaging. One guy idling around, running the boat, while the other one's standing on a step ladder looking at what's in the water. Because we didn't have sight imaging and 360 and all this stuff. You wonder why those guys got so good on the bay.
Yeah.
They knew where every big boulder was. It was bigger than everything else.
Yeah. And you'd put your boat in drive, and you'd have your trolling motor in, and one guy would stand on the front deck and steer the boat left and right with the trolling motor while it was in idle. One guy was on the front deck, other guy was going back and forth on the back, just looking for stuff. You turn around and you mark it. Yeah. You throw your marker buoy out there and come back and get a good mark on it. Like, that's and that leads into the conversation where we're talking about younger fishermen being really good because they're spending all the time on the water that they are. Those guys that were really good in this area that used to kick everybody's butt just about everywhere we went, that's what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, remember the guys complaining that, well, those guys get out and they paint rocks on shore so they can triangulate a rock pile or a this or a that. Oh, is it in the rules you can't do that? Why are you mad?
Well, did you see the painted boulder? If there was a painted boulder that you happen to see there, maybe it ought to raise a question. Like, exactly. Maybe you should fish it. I don't know.
And you know what? No one ever could say they ever saw him paint a boulder, but they would say that, well, they're doing this, they're doing that. No, they're just, at one point in time, there were some anglers around here that got accused of putting salmon in crayfish traps to get crayfish to populate their fishing spot, because that would bring more fish in.
The lengths that the human mind will go to
justify
losing or covering up your own deficiencies. Like, I've got a friend of mine that I talk to about all kinds of stuff. And he was a guy that said, before you go through with an idea, he said, you need to do a couple things. One, you need to say the thing out loud. Because if you hear yourself say it, it's going to sound a lot different than you just thinking it. And you also have to have a friend that you're comfortable with them telling you you're an idiot for when you say things like this, because I will co-sign my own BS.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like, if you're doing the mental gymnastics to try and justify why you didn't win a tournament and somebody won for the 5th time, but your only thing is they have to be cheating in order to win. make sure you say that out loud to somebody that you trust and give them the facts so they can tell you that you're an idiot. Plain and simple. And you have to love that person for doing that. I can't stand it with these guys around. And it happens in every area. I mean, anywhere somebody's really good, you can't respect the fact that they're good. No, it's a lot easier to say, well, they have to be cheating.
They weren't good 2 years ago. They got to be cheating.
Yeah.
I've got probably maybe the biggest example in the history of bass fishing. Personally, Mike Long. Mike Long was cheating for how long? And we knew he was cheating for years and years and years because it was proven. And there were a lot of guys in town that kept on saying, why are you still talking to the guy? You know he's cheating. I'm like, well, no one's proven it. You know, no one has given me concrete evidence that the guy has proven it. It's all hearsay. And I want to say my dad was probably the very last person to talk to Mike Long. Period. Like, guys had just shunned him completely before that video even came out of the proof of him cheating, and before he disappeared from the sport. My dad was the last guy. I was one of the last guys to talk to the guy, and I was not going to just give in to the guy's cheating, all the hearsay, you know, without any concrete proof. And I got shit for it. I got a lot of shit for it. But I wasn't going to be the guy to be like, hey, I'm not talking to the guy anymore. I want him out of the sport without any concrete evidence. So, yeah, I don't know. That one's become real personal, you know, because then the concrete evidence did come out and I'm like, shit, well, they were right. He was cheating the whole time. There were signs, you know, for years, but I don't know. I'm not going to be that guy.
No, and
I'm going to try and be better myself, you know?
I bet you that 1% of the people that are accused of being cheated or being cheaters actually might be.
Yeah.
Everything else is an excuse. Like the guy that's probably not cheating is the guy that routinely wins. And when you do come up and beat him, he's the first one to shake your hand.
Yeah.
And those guys were. You know, and most of the guys that have been really good, because the guys that seem to be really good also seem to respect the sport and respect the competition a whole lot more than the guys that are accusing them of cheating. For sure. And that, you know, it used to be back in the day when I first started doing this, there was routinely guys that would bring coolers, and those coolers were iced down for when you got back, and you would sit there at that ramp or wherever the weigh-in was. I mean, or you'd stop and have dinner or something like that. And it wouldn't be just like another team. There was a lot of times that it would be 5, 6, 7, 10 teams, half the field, whatever, guys just hanging out. I don't know what it's like anymore. I've fished one tournament now and I had to get back home, but whatever. But I used to fish those tournaments as much for the camaraderie as I did to try and be the next big thing in bass fishing.
We had it for a long time where we had all of our open tournament trails for the most part were, you had the camaraderie that you would if you were in a club together.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, we had a lot of that for a long time. Now you don't see it. And a lot of it's just, I think people are a lot more busy. There's a couple, you see a lot of these guys that, given an opportunity, like, you know, Art with the Winneconne Open, that's one of the biggest reasons he does what he does. He has a big sort of banquet afterwards. And all these guys that normally leave that tournament, they hang out and everybody has a good time together. Win, lose, or draw. Yeah. Pretty much everybody shows up for that. You know, I think some of these tournaments now, because we switched to where tournaments were on Sundays so much.
Yeah.
And that really pushed guys to where they weren't hanging out. They were like, tournament day's over. We got to get home because you're preparing for the week, this, that. Mm-hmm. Now we're seeing a shift back to where some of these tournaments are just, it's Friday. Like, I'm sorry, but if you can't take time off of work to come fish this tournament on a Friday, too bad. but they're big enough that they want a bad weather day built in for Saturday. Or it's a 2-day tournament and it is Friday, Saturday built in for, if you need to, you run it Friday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday. But it seems like there's a lot more camaraderie and a lot more warm fuzzies after an event when you see the tournaments be on a Friday or Saturday versus the Sunday. And yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, like, we just had a situation where we had a circuit that was, I would say, like NEW, was consistently 25 boats, 30 boats, something like that. Some of the circuits I ran through here, you had good boat counts, but the bait shop I used to work at had storage units behind it, and I had a corner unit that was like twice the size, and we had multiple guys that kept their boats down there, and more guys on top of that that lived within 15, 20 minutes. And we would get together for safety meetings on like Tuesdays or Thursdays or whatever.
I think it was Wednesday safety meeting.
There were multiple days, and a lot of those days ran together. But you know what? We'd have people come by, and I would hear stories that I had heard 50 times, and I'd die to hear them the 51st time. And it was just a bunch of guys that had different levels of experience, different life experiences, and we all came together. We drank beer, and thank goodness there was a Taco Bell not too far down the road. All these things just kind of came together, and we had a great group of people. Seasons change in people's lives, and that certainly changes or skews how things have to work out. But that's the thing I miss, and honestly, part of the reason I got a boat again, and I was fishing, what did I do, 2 or 3 years of pond fishing where I was.
I think it was more than that. I was knocking on 5.
Yeah.
Because you started off going maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah, but then I started doing it pretty heavily. And
for probably 3 years, you were going pretty regular in the pond.
And it did a couple things. One, my fishing, some of these ponds I'd see, we'd have like 15 people fishing them at one time. So they were pressured ponds, but you'd have to pay attention to the details because there was scattered rock through there. And like, I'd bring a Carolina rig so I could kind of get the feedback and understand where these rock points were, so I could throw a crankbait over there, because I didn't think anybody was throwing a crankbait and banging it off the edge of the rock point, whatever. Made me pay attention to the details of what I was doing a lot more. The other thing that I started to realize, and it was one of my best friends, and when I sold my Stratus, we had Caden was on the way. Caden was born the month that we got it. Carter was 17 months old at that point, and I was frankly kind of pissy about having to sell it and not do it. But I had kids, and Tim looked at me and said, "Hey man," he said, "this is always going to be here." He said, "You got more important things to do right now."
Yep.
Part of the reason I'm fishing as much as I am again is because some of the people that I would love more than anything to share a boat with are dead. Cancer got them. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Tim. Fortunately, I'm really happy that I have a relationship with Chad's son, Jaden, and spend a lot of time talking to him. And the first 2 times that Jaden and I went fishing, we caught one walleye that was about this big. But one night we sat in the parking lot and talked till about midnight. And the next time we went out, it was the most unbelievable sunset across a calm lake that you ever saw. And you start realizing that everything happens for a reason. Moments have meaning, and you got to appreciate the opportunities that you're given to enjoy those with the people that you can do them with. And sometimes the time alone is very important for the reset too. And that's a big part of why I do it. Is I don't want to go longer in life and not have the opportunity to at least go see some buddies and go spend that time out there doing that.
That's why one of the big factors into me not fishing tournaments anymore is that when you fish tournaments, 2 things there. A, you tend to if you say you're going to fish 2 a year, you end up fishing 4 to 6 a year. Right? So you're always sort of practicing. To some extent, you're always sort of practicing. Then, oh, I don't want to fish with this guy, or I don't want to go do this, right? Like we were talking about you and Chad fishing together, and who gave you permission for you two to go fishing together? That comment, right?
Oh yeah.
But not many people got to experience the fun that is fish with Chad.
No.
Because everybody I know that ever fished with him, as much as he could be grumpy and a hard ass and everything else, anybody that ever fished with him, they never sort of treated him the same way. It was like he was a fun guy. He really was.
Yeah.
We've been unfortunate. Marcus and I both have had a lot of important people in our fishing career pass untimely. And yeah, that's why I don't like fishing tournaments, because if I want to go fishing with Kyle, I want to go fishing with Kyle. I don't want someone chewing me out. I don't want my tournament partner pissing and moaning at me. I don't want to feel like I can't show them something or do this or do that. I want to go catch fish.
Yeah.
I was gonna say with Uncle Tim, this guy that you were talking about gave you that advice. Everybody called him Uncle Tim. Everybody, right?
Yeah.
But everything was such a secret. Everything's always, when you start competing at this stuff, everything's a secret, and I don't know how to balance that without just walking away from the tournament side of things.
Curt and I were fishing on a point up in northern Door County in spring. He wanted to go one way, I wanted to go the other, and we've spent a lot of time together, and we've talked business, we've talked life, we've talked fishing and everything else like that. And it was just one of these, I don't know if ego got in the way for both of us at this given point or something like that. But I mean, we're kind of yelling at each other on the front deck of the boat. Like I want to go over here. I'm like, well, I know. And he's like, well, you don't think I know anything. I'm like, you don't think I know anything. And we're sitting there, we're yelling back and forth, and I'm still working my jerkbait the entire time. And this was how I found the aggressive cadence for the day, because I was a little heated. We're going back, and we're sitting there, we're yelling, and damn near yelling at each other. And I rip my jerkbait, and it just gets smoked. And I slap Curt on the backside, and I say, all right, here we go. Where do you want to go next? And that was the end of it. But, you spend a lot of time together, and the competitive nature starts kicking in a little bit. And I like competing, and I travel so much for work that I can't jump in a trap league. I can't throw darts. I can't do any of this or the other thing. So I feel like I'm fishing a tournament next week. It's $100 entry fee. And I believe that half of the entry fee is going towards Make-A-Wish. Like it's a benefit tournament, and I'm fishing with Casey, and we looked at it, and I've surely spent $100 in a worse way, and we're going to have a good time. And win, lose, or draw, we're giving money to a good cause. It scratches that competitive itch a little bit. It's just when you put a clock on anything, it changes it. CrossFit's popular because
100%.
CrossFit workouts are popular because there's a time domain. Whenever you're trying to get something done around the house, but you have 2 hours and it has to be done, it changes the intensity with which you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's whenever we put a clock or parameters around something, it changes the way that we have to do things. So, tournament fishing is one of those things that you have to decide, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is that what you need to do? And I enjoy both. I enjoy the fact that I can go out on some days and not have to worry about anything other than just trying to figure out that green fish or that brown fish. And then there's some days that I certainly like to have the time, have the clock, get it done by this, to each your own. You don't have to fish tournaments to be a respected bass fisherman.
The advantage of the tournaments is just the way you approach it too. Like we talked about the other day about you practicing. Yeah. Well, if you really want to find where they are, you should go today, because they're going to bite wherever they are.
Yeah.
But then we were talking about the next day, and it's like, well, I wouldn't write off any spot you don't catch anything.
No.
But if you catch them good on a certain spot, that's probably a really good spot because the weather's supposed to be shitty conditions. Whether you work 6 days a week and go 2 days of fishing every 3 weeks and you just go that day, tournament fishing makes you better because you fish whatever conditions available.
Exactly.
When you have the time to go whenever you want, I'm not going to call the individual out that I'm referring to, but me and you both know someone that has the time to go whenever he wants. And he's become one of the most lazy fishermen. You know, and it's like some point you got to just decide. And that's where I've sort of learned that lesson. It's like, we're going to make plans. We're going to go this 2 days. We're going to take these 2 days. We're going to go. If the weather's supposed to thunderstorm or something, yeah, then I'm going to maybe cancel. But otherwise, it's like, let's just go. Let's just go. You don't know what it's going to be. You might figure something out. It might end up being a good day. You just got to go. But that's the one thing about, I think, why a lot of people do tournament fish and club fish is because it makes them go.
Yeah.
You know, like with you with your pond fishing, I loved the aspect that you had, the outlook you had about that. He's calling me like, what do you think of this shower blow? You think we can catch fish on a shower blow? And I'm like, well, you know when it's good. And then he'd go out there, and if they were biting good, you'd throw the dang shower blow.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you learn. That's sort of back to that whole jerkbait thing. How many days we spent just, we're on fish. There's a big school of fish here. Let's start trying different jerkbaits.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
that's when the new stuff comes out of the box that you don't have the ultimate confidence in. If you're struggling, you're falling back on the stuff that you have your confidence in.
And I think, kind of reflecting back to the discussion we've had earlier about things that have changed since I was in and out. Man, has line changed. Man, does a rod feel a whole lot different, and the price points have changed so much on what you can get quality on. But like one of the things I recently did, like I have this love-hate relationship with fishing docks because I think I don't like doing it. If I have to do it, I'll do it. But I think catching them from underneath the dock is one of the coolest things in fishing. The conversations that you have with people who may own said dock can go many different ways. Yesterday, I tried jumping in on somebody's turkey sandwich. There was somebody on shore to ask him, you want turkey or you want mac and cheese? I'm like, dude, put me down for a turkey sandwich. Laughed and stuff like that. But, the technology starts changing on all this stuff. I have spent more money online to go on my dock skipping rod, on my casting rod. I bought Sunline Overtex, and you know why? Because they said it's the most manageable, best handling fluorocarbon that they make. And it made a difference. Like, oh my gosh, the things that are changing in fishing line to keep getting better and better and better. Like, all braid is the same? No, you're sadly mistaken. Every 5 carrier is a little bit different. Like, I tried that Berkeley X5, and it holds knots really nice. And when you put your FG knot on there, like, it locks in. It's really good. But I have never in my life come across something that'll win knot better than that X5. You want to practice picking out wind knots and getting loops out of spools? That's your line. That is your line for sure. Then
you spooled it on a line winder, so it didn't get twisted.
Yeah, I put it on him with a line winder, and then you go over to that J braid, and I'm like, wow, how people don't like this, I'll never understand that. That stuff is fantastic. But yeah,
that's one thing we talked prior to this episode of how things have changed in the industry since you got out and got back in. And we talked about electronics alone, but that's one thing I was going to bring up was, line hooks. Everything. Hooks are a big one.
Yeah.
With all this coating, with the new materials that they're using for hooks, the new coatings that they're putting on them, It's totally changed.
There was, and you go back to early 2000s, 2010, you could walk into any tackle retailer, Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, Independence, and I promise you, you could find a yellow handled Lure Jensen hook sharpener, a hook file.
Mm-hmm. Everyone had that brand.
Had that brand and that because you know what? You needed it. You get 3 fish, you should probably check out the point on that.
Yep.
Unless I'm using certain jig head minnows right now where I know that hook point's going to roll if you look at it funny, but they're cheap in the particular spot that I'm fishing. It eats jigs. Dude, you don't worry about hook points nearly the same way. Like, still good.
Try to find one of them Lure Jensen hook sharpeners out of tack shop.
I tried finding one on Amazon, and I'm not paying $30. I'm not.
Well,
I'm not.
And the way that they're sharpened now, or the way that they're built now, I don't bother sharpening them because I can't get them as sharp as they are out of the package.
No,
period. You can't.
No.
So I cut the damn thing off and I put a new one on.
Right.
Because I know I'm at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Sharpening a chemically sharpened hook with a hook sharpener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's certain hooks that I sharpen that the point breaks off of them.
Right.
And I can get it not as sharp as it is originally. I can get it sharp enough where I'm comfortable, but it's not costing me fish. Now, if I was in a tournament, that'd be a different story. I just put a new jig head on, but especially here with all the rocks and everything, I have tube jig head. I'm going to sharpen that hook point at least, once. Ned rig heads. I've done Ned rig heads, chatterbaits. I'm not sharpening a dang chatterbait hook point. If I'm using a jackhammer, spending $20 and I fish it around rock and break a point or roll a point,
that.
I'm sharpening that because it's $20. It's not a crankbait. Exactly. I can just swap out treble hooks,
Yeah, there's nothing I hate worse than in today's fishing than so many of the things are good, cost like $15 to $20. I understand why guys on video and on live have gone swimming after things. One, availability of one of those things for a long time. Yeah, I don't. Dude, I tried skipping an urchin underneath the dock up in northern Wisconsin, and I caught some doing it, but it was before I had the single hook that I like using now, and I had the hooks on top. And man, can you hang that thing up really easy underneath the dock? And our docks are slammed down. It's like a low rider, like slam down to the water.
Yeah.
We're trying to fit this thing underneath there. Yeah, I love hanging $15 off of somebody's dock. As much as they hate me cutting that off and having to deal with that, I probably hate it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many of our docks, you don't even want to dock your boat to it because the top of the dock's below your rub rail on your bass boat.
Yesterday, I saw a dock that, first of all, it ain't 2 feet off the water. I mean, maybe this one was. Maybe it was like 2.5 feet off the water, whatever. They took the time to go along the entire dock and run thick string equidistant between the water level and the bottom of the dock. Now, I got to tell you something. If I'm being honest, it makes me want to fish their dock even more. One, because I know they don't want you to, but two, that thing's not been molested like the other docks have.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there. I wanted to take a picture of it. I mean, they did a heck of a job. That line was run straight. It was fantastic.
I've talked to a handful of people about that. So all it would take if you owned a dock, and this is the comment I always got when I actually get the chance to talk to somebody. This is the experience that I've been told. They're like, when you're taking that dock out, or you have your grandkids, or you have somebody that's swimming or jumping off the dock and they reach up to grab a dock and impale themselves on a fishing hook. If I owned a dock and that happened to my grandkid, yeah, I'd be pretty salty about it.
For sure.
I mean,
yeah,
I get it. I mean, I have every right to fish under their dock as they have to have the dock. But yeah, you got to be conscientious about what you're what you're doing with those docks. And I don't like leaving baits on docks, never have, but that's one of the biggest reasons is why I don't, because it is a safety thing for the owner of that dock.
Yep, for sure.
That's something I hadn't even thought about because we don't have docks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially here, you see so many people. And then some of that stuff is actually they don't want the ducks around, and the ducks won't swim under the dock if there's intrusions. You see a bunch of guys, and that's why you see like full planks on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you never know. You got the person that's like, you're intruding on my view out my window while I'm drinking my coffee in the morning. And then you got the next person that comes down and like, hey, we're having a barbecue later if you want to stop by. You want a cold beer? And it could be next door neighbors doing that. One guy's offering you a beer and the next person's telling you to get away from their dock, get off their lake.
Yeah.
You got the whole lake. You got to fish in front of my dock. Well, I started 2 hours ago all the way on the other end of the lake. Yours isn't special.
Yeah. And when you run
yours is just next.
When you run your jet ski or pontoon where I could feel the spray kind of coming off with the wind blowing that way, I can ask you the same question. Hundreds of acres of water, and you had that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't have had to try to cast. I could have underhand pitched and hit the 2 jet skis that went by. And I'm not.
And you can't see it. You can't see another boat within a mile.
No.
But all of a sudden, there's 2 jet skis by you.
Water wasps.
Water wasps.
Yeah. Yep.
So how much did we talk about the technology so far that you've seen different? I know we talked a little bit about it, but yeah, you didn't have spot lock when you.
No, I mean, we talked about the big ones, spot lock and forward facing and
360.
Lithium batteries.
Oh, dude.
I've fished nearly every weekend. I try and fish a day or two. I'll drop in if I have an evening. I got a couple of ramps that are close to the house. I can go chase some fish around there. I think I've charged my batteries 4 times this year. And not because I needed to. It's because one of them, the cranking battery, finally got down to like 56%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's insane. And the trolling motor is like, I'm running a Minn Kota Quest. And the first time I ran that thing, where I stopped on my way back from Minnesota to pick that up, drop it in the water, uber clear. I was stepping on the pedal and I was just so kind of confused. Like, I'm leaning over, trying to see if the prop is turning. As I got it on 4 and I'm standing on the pedal and I feel like I'm moving, but I can't hear anything. Now, to give you a little background on me, there was a long time I ran motor guides, and you never had a question about if that motor guide was running.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to turn that Quest up to like 7 before I can hear a whirl. It's unbelievable. I did fish docks yesterday for a while, checking some stuff out. Not fighting with the cable drive, like the same way, like the tension that used to be on those pedals and everything has made maneuvering your boat control has made it a lot easier, I think.
All I've heard about the Quest, I haven't personally used them, but all I've heard is it is such an upgrade from the regular Ultrex, which is what I still have for now. But yeah, quiet.
They're all that way.
Quiet.
I fished with a guy who had the what is it? It's the power pole one, I think.
Power pole move.
Same thing. Yeah. Move. Silent.
Yeah, I like how small the head is on that one.
Yeah.
I do like that.
That one's very reminiscent in build type to the old Tour Edition motor guides.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember Pinpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pinpoint,
yeah.
And they were trying to deal with that whole conglomeration there and trying to get something like, we look back at this technology and how far we've come, but they were a company that was way ahead of its time. with being able to, like, they were coming up with a spot lock concept that could never quite get right because I think they were relying on the wrong technology to drive it. I think they were trying to rely off of the unit instead of building something more independent for it.
Well, at that time too, you had the accuracy of our GPSs are not what it is today.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if a true heading sensor was a deal then either.
It was not.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the technology I really think that's why we have what we have is because of Pinpoint.
Yeah.
Because they were doing that in the early 2000s, maybe even late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was shortly after, like you're talking about the old LMS 350 days with Lowrance.
Yeah. Yeah. I have thought about trying to start a circuit where you'd have to go and reclaim some old electronics, but like the best thing you could have would be like an LMS 520. I'll let you have color. An LMS 520 with the card slot on there. You know, the mapping and the GPS of, you know, the safety enhancements that had for running your boat around places that you weren't intimately familiar with has probably saved a lot of people, possibly saved lives, I guess you could say. Although, unfortunately,
I think people are a little more reckless because they're staring at that, watching where they're going instead of watching where they're actually going.
Oh, you see it on highways too.
You got to be smart about that. Like it's a lifesaver. Like I'm going over to the desert in about a month and a half and running that lake at 15 feet lower than normally or than it was last year. It's a totally different lake. And I mean, you legitimately got underwater islands that were, sometimes they're 30-foot deep. Well, or 15-foot deep. Now you got lakes 15 foot lower. Before you couldn't see a light spot of where that was. It's like running sandbars on the river out here. You're running, 6-7 foot of water up the river, and you see a sandbar coming up that's a foot deep. Same thing out at Lake Mead. You can see those islands coming up if they're shallow, but having that mapping technology allows me to go way out and around that stuff and not even have to think about it. But yeah, I'm not running 30 foot of water. I'm not running full speed at 30 foot of water. If I get to 30, 40 foot of water, I'm slowing down and I'm idling because those things can come out of nowhere. And the mapping there is not all that great. They haven't mapped that lake in I don't know how many years, but that mapping allows me to stay way out in that, 100, 150 foot of water away from that stuff until I'm pulling into an area that I'm actually going to fish. And then I slow down. But you got to be smart about it. You can't be running full speed, if the whole place is 20 foot of water. You just got to be smart. You can't rely on it 100%.
I think there's a lot of people that are running around in bass boats that haven't had enough seat time to really deal with the things that can go wrong with it, or they haven't had the right scare yet. I mean,
yeah.
Running trimmed out, coming over a boat wake and going just about rub rail to rub rail makes you change your perspective on how you need to drive a bass boat.
Especially nowadays with the wakeboard boats. That's a whole nother conversation, but flat, calm day, and all of a sudden you're going across the lake and you're talking to your buddy and bullshit and whatever, and you know where you're going. There's nothing for you to hit. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes a 6-foot wave that you go, Supermaning off of with your 20-foot bass boat doing 50.
Yep.
Oh my God. It's like, and they're supposed to be responsible for any damage their wake causes, but there isn't a whole lot of conversation about that. What that wake's doing.
Not when you're negligent.
When you're across the lake. One, who made it? Who's responsible when you can't tell who made it?
Right.
And those things are made to make bigger wakes than their boat should, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you get zoned into staring at that graph for navigation instead of using your eyeballs. That's why you have bad stuff happen. I think there's been a couple documented bad boat accidents recently in the last 3, 4, or 5 years. That I know one last year, where it came out where there was that video and he's just full on pad going down a channel. it's like he doesn't see that boat even there, and it ain't a tiny boat.
Yeah.
You know, that's lack of attention and judgment. That is the downside of staring at that big graph.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like in the Triton, you know, we had a 21 TRX together. You put two graphs in front of it. You put that Fortrex or Ultrex on the bow of it.
Mm-hmm.
Those seats were so low. I didn't like driving it. I mean, it was fun to drive if I was on the river and could see, but it's more about being a quick driver, not a long distance. Going across a big lake wide open, the bow's up so high I couldn't see over the bow. I can see right of the bow. I can't see left of the bow. And even if I would take my graphs off, I still can't see past what's on the bow.
Yeah.
You know, you being taller, you can't tell in the video here, but I'm pretty sure some days I think you're a foot taller than me.
Feels like it sometimes, yeah.
You know, him driving was like, yes, please do. Unless we were on the river. Then I was like, no, you're not driving.
Yeah.
I know where we're going.
I was okay with that. Being an open water guy, like I grew up on big water and wide open and you could run wherever. I was fairly convinced we were going to end up on shore dead running through that river the first couple times I went with him. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. People do this? That's a whole lot different coming from the open water. And
especially on some of those skinny areas. Adam's been to the skinny stuff. I just giggle.
And you flew through some of that stuff.
Yeah.
We had I don't know if you remember, we had probably like a 6-foot sturgeon jump 4 or 5 foot out of the water.
Yeah.
I can only imagine running that river and a freaking sturgeon jumping up and getting decapitated.
I've never seen it.
There are people that have been fishing on Winnebago, though, like trolling, just out the walleye trolling and stuff like that. And like sturgeon have ended up in boats.
Yeah.
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 Dude.
You don't remember that sturgeon jumping in the river?
I mean, I see sturgeon jump in the river all the time, but I've never seen one close to the boat where I was like, oh my God, the thing almost landed in the boat. I know.
It wasn't that close to the boat, but when that happened, I was like, dude, I can only imagine running through here and that thing jumping, hitting you in the face.
No,
ask the guys in Illinois about the Asian carp and getting hit in the face.
Oh, dude,
that's happened a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Those things are dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of fishing talk. I didn't prep you for this question, Marcus, but you spent a lot of time in the boat with Curt. You got a good story about Curt? First one that comes to mind.
I would say that the fishing with Curt experience it's way more than when you get on the water. Like I live a half hour away. All right. So 30 minutes out here, 30 minutes to get back home. So that's an hour of drive time. And if we're going to a body of water that we've been to probably no less than 374 times, we still got to take the boat completely apart, take everything out of it, and put everything back in to make sure that it meets his specific specifications for what he thinks it might be the next day. So, I mean, and Curt travels light. I mean, 37 rods in one rod locker, if you can fit them in there, and then 14 or 16 in the next one. More tackle than most retailers have.
That's only here. You can only say that about here.
No, that goes in the rig too. And he wants to make sure that he's prepared for what's going to happen. And then he'll fish with 2 rods all day. Yep. So it's the experience of the preparation that gets you ready for the day in the boat with Curt.
I can attest to that.
All right. But the best, the one that comes to mind about being on the water. So we were fishing a tournament down in Madison, Wisconsin. We were camping down there all week.
This is the story I thought you'd tell.
Yeah. And it's hot all week. I mean,
no wind.
It's getting down to 72 degrees at night, like 75, 72. We're in a pop-up camper for the week. I mean, it's borderline miserable. We're out there and we weren't as
no sunscreen
cognizant about protecting your skin at that point in time. And we fished in the old Teva type sandals, straps and deal like that. Old Curt there, he's fishing. And I mean, I can't find something red enough to tell you how red the top of his feet were. Actually,
No.
Oh,
That's what color the top of
we're
my
starting to
feet
get
were
this color
in them sandals.
So Curt ends up taking these 2 microfiber towels that we're using to wipe the screens off of, dipping them in the water and putting them over the top of his feet so he can survive. And I mean, they're
I
like
got a yellow
and
one
orange
and a blue one.
yellow
and a blue
one.
one.
And there's a runabout coming by us. We're fishing down a weed line and they're just kind of drifting by, having a good old time. And I can hear her say to her husband, she's like, "What's he got on his feet?" He had one of those microfiber towels stuck into it, and
I got them stuck into my sandals because my feet are already that red. The only saving you have is just completely cover them, because otherwise they're just going to keep burning more and more.
Yeah, and the weatherman nailed that forecast. Tournament day, it was like 62 degrees and hazy and it was foggy and northeast wind.
Yeah, they had that was an interesting week of fishing.
It was a great week.
I have a story. So we're practicing for this tournament. When I was saying before, he's not good about leaving fish alone. We're practicing for this tournament. We'd find what we call like a haystack of milfoil or cabbage that the fish would be grouped up on. You flip to it, you catch a big one. If the first fish you catch off of that spot's a big one, there's more there, because the competition drives the big ones to eat. I can't kick my trolling motor on 100 fast enough to get him away. He is overhand casting an 1.25 ounce jig to cast back to where I just got hooked, or he just caught one. And I'm like, leave him for tournament day. He's just having a good old laugh about sticking all these fish.
And as it turned out, we should have stuck them all.
Well, maybe not. Maybe that's why we didn't catch as many.
That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. They were practicing too.
Yeah. We're staying in that pop-up camper next to a campsite where I'm pretty sure they were living there for the summer.
Yeah, I think they had a situation where they may have lost their dwelling.
Yeah. They were hooked up to power playing video games. Yeah. Or at least they were playing video games.
Video games were on.
Yeah, video games were on to cover up the noise of the other extracurricular activities that were going on. Marcus and I are texting each other, laughing so hard that the pop-up camper is shaking.
Yeah. We couldn't say what was going on because they would have heard us. That's how close we were.
Yeah.
Like their campsite was here and their tent was like here, and the corner of the pop-up was like,
I couldn't walk between them without turning sideways. Like the next morning I checked to see if they were actually in our campsite line. That's how close they were.
The indicator was we got up at like 5:30 in the morning to go fish, and that the dude is standing outside smoking a cigarette. He's like, "Morning, boys."
Proud of himself.
I don't blame him.
We made I think I made the comment to you that you could hear it splash off the side of the tent. That's how close we were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time.
But yeah, we were not supposed to get a cold front. It wasn't supposed to come in until like that morning. They were still saying, or like calling like, oh, it's supposed to be 80 degrees in an hour. It's 60. It ain't getting to 80. It's supposed to be sunny. It's dark and cloudy.
I had a hooded sweatshirt and my light white rain gear pants on all day.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be a low of like 72. They were still claiming a low of 72 while it was 60.
Yeah. Inside the weather.
I don't know how they missed that forecast, but yeah. I don't know. We caught a limit, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
I lost a big one. Huh?
It was tough.
Yeah, I shouldn't say I lost a big one. We saw a big one on the frog.
Yeah.
But
well, you two have spent a lot of time in the boat together. You guys have known each other a long time. I mentioned that we have 2 special guests. You want to introduce our second special guest and tell us the story
Before
behind
you
him.
introduce the special guest, I would like to say that I think this happened because I would call you when I was down in Alabama or send you pictures of all the cooking and the food, the big fish, and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, Marcus had felt a need to poke the bear back.
Well, I think you were going down there and you were telling us all how great it was going to be and blah, 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 blah. And as soon as you were leaving, I pulled the trigger on this order because I'm like, well, you're not really leaving. You're going to be here with me the whole time.
Yeah.
And you're going to fish with me and everything else. So,
yeah.
People that aren't viewing this, I hope that you get to see this clip somewhere or see the comparison, but, and maybe you get to hear it in Curt's voice a little bit time. But if you're a fan of South Park, we would like to introduce you to Curtman.
Curtman.
Yep.
Yeah. They sound very similar, built similar, height-wise. This one is easier to prepare to go fishing with. He just kind of sits there and lets you do your own thing. But no, Curt when he was gone, I'd go fishing with a guy that worked for Dirty Jigs Tackle at the time, and another buddy. We'd take him and we'd seatbelt him in the truck and take pictures and send it to Curt, and we'd put him in the boat and take pictures with him, take pictures with some fish and stuff like that. So yeah, this is Curtman. He was introduced when Curt was not actually present, and 9 out of 10 people prefer Curtman. I'm telling you,
when I saw that in Curt's garage, when I went up and fished with him for the first time, and I heard the story behind that, I said that it makes 100 perfect sense.
Yeah,
and I told him the story.
Yeah,
yeah.
They sound strikingly similar, and demeanor is pretty similar.
Especially when they're pissed off and cranky.
They both want you to respect their authority. Have you ever had a conversation with Curt when you start getting him irritated about jigs and how much he sounds like, respect my authority?
Oh, yeah.
Dirty Jigs Tackle. I'm Dirty Curt. And he is one of the best that's ever designed a jig. I mean, made the second best swim jig in the state of Wisconsin. And that's the look you were hoping you'd get off this podcast.
Second best.
These are the shots that I was hoping for with Kyle too. I would hope Kyle would take some shots. I knew Marcus would.
We've spent a lot of time together. We give each other a fair amount of crap and everything else.
Nothing drives me more crazy with Marcus though. He can say all the shit he wants. Nothing fires me up when I'm like, well, what'd you catch him on today? He'd come get the boat, go fishing. What'd you catch him on today? But I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. I just pulled whatever rods were in the rod locker. Boat's rigged up for going to the Bay, Green Bay. He goes to the river or goes to Shawano. He doesn't have swim jigs in the boat, doesn't have this. Oh, I just grabbed these rods out of the rod rack. If I lose it, I lose it. I'm done for the day. Well, one day we're literally fishing together. What weight swim jig you got on? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. Well,
I put on what you told me to.
And he's just putting on a clinic in the back of the boat. I'm like, what are you doing? I switch weights, I switch colors, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. Finally figure out, oh no, he doesn't have a quarter on. He's got a 5/16 on. I switched to 5/6, boom. 5/16, that was the deal that day. But that was nonstop. What weight were you flipping today? And if nothing else, like on the river, I'm trying to get a gauge of what the current flow is, this and that. He doesn't know. One of the best things you told me about new stuff is, you can buy tungsten with the weight etched on it.
Yeah.
Because then he knows what weight it is. Yeah. He just, whatever's in the rod locker, he pulls it out, just fishes it, like whatever.
He's a 100% exact opposite of you.
Yes. So drive me nuts.
Now, I'm a lot more detail oriented than I used to be. And not that I wasn't detail oriented before, but I just kind of, I didn't let the minutia of all the details in some situations confuse what I needed to do. Like it was so much about feel for me. Like I could feel I'm getting the bites because I'm just able to feel enough of what's going on bottom versus days when I knew I had to be pounding bottom. And I would look at the size of the sinker and I go up one or whatever, just in the box. And he had his stuff labeled really well. And I could tell him the compartment I took it out of. I just couldn't tell him what weight.
A lot of times that's what it was like. Oh, okay. I know what that was. Yeah. Just because he told me what compartment or what tackle box it was in. There would be days, and he talked about it, like the jerkbait thing and how specific that can be. Just to F with me, I'd be like, okay, did that fish hit it on a pause? After a rip, after a twitch, after a succession of twitches or pauses, or what? I know he knows. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention.
Zoned out. I was in the zone. Flow state of mind.
Lying. He's lying.
I'm no, I don't think so.
He was lying.
I would say I'm a happy medium.
He'd answer and laugh. He was effing lying.
I'd say I'm a happy medium between the two of you guys. And like you said, Marcus, it's a lot about feel. Like I'm not even thinking, like the day you and I were jerkbaiting out there, Curt, I was catching them pretty damn good on the jerkbait.
Yeah.
I got one good one. And you kept on trying to like recreate what I was doing, but I don't even think that I was doing anything consistent enough to recreate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all on feel, hitting the jerkbait hard, and I'm not even really thinking about what I'm doing. It's just constantly switching things up until I do get bit, and then maybe not even necessarily thinking about, okay, recreate that. It's all feel.
Days I'm locked in with a jerkbait, I can't tell you. I usually can't tell you. Days that I'm locked in, yeah, because you're just doing what you feel in that moment.
You're not thinking about it.
Yeah,
I've done a fair amount of studying on like sports psychology and mindset stuff, and they talk about different, like getting into your different thought processes and how that looks, and the people that when you're dealing with somebody like that's super high intellect. Kind of person that has trouble focusing on one thing. And Curt's an example like that. But I know when Curt is talking about something where the flow thought process is going on, because he'll be talking about and he'll be off, kind of looking off somewhere else like that, and being able to describe everything with only the detail that he can do it, which is what made him so successful building baits. And it's one of the things that he does really well fishing, everything else like that. When you get into that flow state of mind, it's hard to know what you're doing. It's not blacked out. It's the in the zone, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, and sometimes you see people do that while they're fishing, and I hate it because I want to know exactly what it is that they're doing, but it's hard to describe.
There's times
when I have talked about that. We've talked about that with the pros, getting pros to come on and talk about specific techniques or whatever. And the pros are out there every single day doing it, and they're the best in the world at it. There's no question about that. But can they tell you exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it? Probably not.
So much
because
of that
it's
stuff
just automatic for them.
Yeah, like the feeding line, the feeding line on a jig cast. When you fish all the time and you practice doing it, I think we all started. I've talked about with Adam a lot about the Denny Brower's Jig Fishing Secrets. I've talked to you about that book. Like, I remember reading the portion in that book where he's talking about feeding line and paying attention to how long it takes your bait to get to the bottom. If I don't fish a lot, I have to consciously think about it. Once I do that enough times, I quit consciously thinking about it. But you tend to fall back into the habit of not doing it if you're not thinking about it. That's it. Jerk baiting, when I'm really in the zone, I'm twitching my line based on the way the line lays in the water.
Yeah.
Because if there's not enough slack, I'm going to do a rip. I'm not going to do a twitch. I'm not going to do a hard snap, because the bait's not going to do what I want it to do because there's not enough slack. So I'm almost, when I really get zoned in on jerk bait, I'm staring at my line and I'm watching for that little tick too, but I'm almost snapping my bait or manipulating my rod based on what my line's doing as much as anything.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, what do you want? You want your bait to look as natural as possible. You then can sometimes pick up, like they want to rip, they want to twitch, they want a long pause. But most good days of jerkbait fishing, you get bit on the rip, you get bit on the pause, you get bit on a twitch. Like they're just eating a jerkbait. So now you just got to make it look as good as you can for as much of your cast as possible. It ain't about doing one right thing. It's about not doing wrong things. I'm sure glide bait or big swim bait's the same thing. You talk about casting angle or presentation. Well, with a jerkbait, it's all about that presentation, how you're managing your line and twitching it. I don't know. I think that's the rabbit hole more that you should be paying attention to with a jerkbait. If you want to talk about getting really detailed, a lot of people are going to do, I got to rip it like you talked before. Well, that long dead stick. Yeah, there's days where that's the deal. But if your boat's drifting too hard, is it really sitting still?
No.
It's moving. And maybe it's the slow drift that's causing the bite, not that it's actually physically sitting still.
Yeah, and we talk about that particular jerkbait, that Lucky Craft Pointer 100 and the Pointer 128. When that thing was supposedly sitting still and you were drifting, that thing had this beautiful, just this little rock. And that's probably what it was. It was just this slow little rock, and it was just easing along, and it was an easy target. Those things that we learned how to do with certain jerk baits, that there was days when I didn't want that thing to look natural. There was ways that I learned how to work a jerk bait that I could make that thing go about 180. I could make it stop more than sideways and turn that way. And some days that was the deal when you would be able to get those bites, was you would be able to get that thing to do and boom, turn sideways on them and almost stare back at their face.
That's getting a jerk bait. Not every jerk bait will do it. Certain jerk baits do, certain don't. Getting it to turn 180 is a lot to do with how hard you snap it versus how much slack you feed back to the bait. Exactly. So let's say you use a 6'6" rod, you're not going to be able to feed back as much slack. You use a 7'1" rod, you can feed more slack.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and continuing with just how rods have evolved and more actions, and if you were able to see around this room with the different amount of blanks and the rods that Curt's played with, and that was another maybe a downfall to me of what I was doing with so many things were by feel, and I didn't understand, but knowing how a rod loads up for what you're trying to work with. I picked up a rod from Curt the other day that I didn't think I needed, and then I was pitching a heavy weight on it versus the heavy weight on the rod that I was using before. I had the realization, I didn't even say this to you yet, but
he doesn't like admitting
the reel matters a lot less for those heavy applications when the lever is right. And you have the right lever, your reel is going to be just fine no matter what it is. Because I'm like, oh, do I need to go to a different type of reel for the torque and everything else like that? No, if you have the right lever, you're going to be okay. Like that, I don't want to say it changed the way that I was fishing, but sure made it a lot easier doing it that way. Just even with presenting a bait, if your lever is incorrect on the cast and the load up or doing that with the pitch that you're going out, being able to control that, taking a heavy tungsten weight and trying to present it quietly while being able to drop it through what you need it to drop through, that's a lot more in depth than what you think it is. Because if you're fishing shallow water and you're throwing a bocce ball on top of them rather than just slipping something in, sometimes that heavy approach will work and you'll still get the bite, but those fish will be a little bit skittish if it's not as covered up as it is at other points, depending on if those trash mats are blowing in or out or whatever the case might be.
You start playing around with an 1.5 ounce weight, there's a lot of punch rods, and that's what you're talking about. A lot of these punch rods are long and sort of soft.
Mm-hmm.
And there's times where those are nice, but you start playing with an ounce and a quarter weight, especially those blown in cut mats where it's pretty hard to get back through it out the top. A soft rod it hangs. It's just spongy. You're just sitting there and you can't get it to pop through the back out. But laying that bait, especially on pressured fish, laying that bait accurately and softly, you need a stiffer rod. For doing that, a lot of the punch rods that are made are too long and too soft. You don't have the control.
You will bang a lot less of the heavy tungsten off the side of your boat, pulling it back out of the weeds with the appropriate rod versus one that's a little bit softer. It's a little bit softer.
Sure.
You're sitting there and you finally pops through the stuff, and that comes through. And that's another good story. Actually, kind of thinking about heavyweight fishing, and Dirty Jigs Tackle came out with the punch jig up to. Did you go up to 2 ounce with that?
I had an ounce and a half. I don't think I ever did a 2 ouncer.
They had the ounce and a half.
I never sold it if I did do it.
Yeah. Well, whatever the heaviest one you had, and we were up the road in about an hour fishing in a weed line, and you thought you had a bite or you snapped it out of the weeds or something, and I got that thing right in the ribs. That hurt, man.
I still think he should have got that tattooed.
Yeah. I had a welt on my rib cage from that. So the next day, he was asking how things were going, and I went and took a screenshot of
you and Joe, you bastards.
Yep. Went and took a screenshot of an X-ray with like a little cracked rib, broken rib, sent it back to him.
Yeah. that was crazy because you could see the outline of a super chunk on his skin. It was, you could see the head, a little bit of a mark where the weed guard is, and then the 2 claws of the super chunk. Like it looked like, a silhouette of a punch jig red on his rib cage. Yeah. It looked like that with a trailer.
It kind of looked like this on my ribs.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Put that back on Curt.
I took one like that. I was being lazy. I was fishing mead with a friend of mine, and I threw a 3/4 ounce Luke Clawson casting jig up on the bank, and it got wedged in some rocks. And I got lazy and just pulled on it rather than getting up there and working it free. Dude, that thing let go on a full pull, and it hit me in the side of the shin. I dropped. Like, I thought it was broken for sure. It hurt for hours, and it bruised up, and it was sore for probably a week and a half. That stuff is never fun.
The only time I worked on a salmon charter boat out of Sturgeon Bay in high school, and I've done a lot of fishing, all kinds of different species. The only time I've ever had a hook in me through all that's ever had to be cut out. I poked myself a couple times, but the only time I've ever had to have a hook cut out was from Curt. 5XD wound up to take a cast, and he was taking a full cast. He stuck it just off my spine, like just out the back. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, just go ahead and cut it out." He's like, "Do you want me to?"
First, it was, "Don't talk to me."
Yeah,
I bet.
I think what
So,
we
moral
learned
of the story.
Don't crankbait fish
story,
with me.
Don't fish with Curt with crankbaits, because he got Canterbury in the back of the head with a 10XD.
Yeah, well, he 5XD'd me right in the back, almost spined me with it. He's like, "Do you want me to pull it out or poke it through?" I'm like, "Just go ahead and poke it through. Like, watch out for the spine, but yeah, just poke it through and cut it."
Paralyzed me.
Yeah.
I actually don't even remember that. I
was up on the chain.
Yeah, I remember you getting it, but I don't remember anything else about it.
Oh, you probably blocked it out. Because he had to cut it.
No, it wasn't a 5XT. No, it was a gammy. So I think it was a big Spro. I think it was a big John.
It was a 5XT.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember the spot it was, and that one in particular, we were diving down so hard real quick. But, yep. Yeah, that's the only time I've ever had a hook in me. Yep. Dude, if you think you need to be on the front deck with Curt throwing a crankbait, you're probably wrong.
you're definitely wrong.
Yeah. He needs those little plastic safety hooks on there. The bonnets.
Little hook bonnets.
Yeah.
Might have something to do with the height difference, though. Fishing with a shorter guy can't get the clearance.
A lot of it, what it is with a crankbait is I tend to like to use pretty soft crankbait rods, and you don't you forget that they're long and they're soft, and you don't really realize. Yeah, I would recommend to anybody, if you're fishing crankbaits with your buddy, don't stand on the front deck with them.
Yeah, it looks like a pole vaulter dangling off the end of it before it snaps them over.
Was that the same year that I got hooked in the hand twice in one day jerkbait fishing?
Could have been.
Was that the year that the bay was cold all year? Like it was like a peak temperature of 62 degrees at the Wapta year. That would have been the Wapta championship year.
Mm-hmm.
Twice in one day. It's the only time I've ever had hooks in my twice in one day. Grab a fish. Those fish are so fat up there, they wiggle a little bit. The whole body slips through your hand like this, and the jerkbait's T-boned. Now you have a 3.5, 4 pound smallmouth with a 110 attaching you to it. Not fun.
Yeah, I hate grabbing smallmouth and trying to negotiate trebles.
Mm-hmm.
That's rough.
Yeah,
they get after it.
As much as I hate using nets, when I jerk bait fish, I use nets on smallmouth.
I don't blame you.
I hate small fish in general with trebles.
Yeah,
even smaller largemouth.
Yeah, you over crank them to the boat. You don't wear them out. Like a big fish, you wear out and they get sort of where they give up. But a small fish, you just overpower them, bring them to the boat, and then
they wake up.
Yeah.
Yep.
But smallmouth in general, I just don't. Especially our smallmouth, where they're so fat and grow so fast in somebody's water. Like there's barely, like if you're catching them on tubes, you can't hardly thumb them because the tube takes up their entire mouth. Well, then they got a face full of treble hooks and you barely got anywhere to grab. Yeah. Mm-mm.
And they're so strong when you try and lip them. Yeah. Like they shake and you feel it. I mean, because those big largemouth, you can get in almost forehand grip, like overhand grip, and pull them up. And you've got more experience with those big giants than we do for sure. But you got all you can do to get your thumb in and try and grab these big smallmouth, and they shake.
You got to find a place to grab.
I swear, a largemouth, the head wags the tail. Smallmouth, the tail wags the head.
For sure.
You get a hold of them.
I got stuck with a popper early in a tournament. I got stuck in the popper right in the joint on my thumb with a small largemouth. And dude, that thing, it wouldn't stop either. It stuck me and it would not stop. I got a grip with the other hand and he's still freaking shaking. I finally it actually shook to the point where it pulled the treble out of my hand in the process. I wanted to spike that fish off the deck of the boat so bad. It hurt so freaking bad. And it was swollen up the rest of the day. I fished the rest of the day. I actually ended up winning that tournament, but throwing a big worm. But yeah, that's no fun.
No.
That might be the only time I've ever actually had a treble buried in me. But let's get on to. We talked a little bit before we started about the urchin stuff. You're back into fishing. You've put some time into urchins. What have you found works best? What's your experience with it so far?
I like it. It doesn't work everywhere. I know that. It's probably more versatile than what, and I think that's probably been exposed. I think, I listen to Dave Mercer's podcast all the time, and he explains it really well, where he thought originally it was like a cat toy that they were shaking in front on the forward facing sonar. And I think that made sense for a long time, but, my experience with it is you need to play with it to try and find the right fall rate. If you're fishing a little bit deeper water, to me, it works. For my experience, it works better over hard bottoms than it does over soft bottoms and more weed bed oriented. I just think with whatever And I think there's probably more to it being a ball of fry or a ball of bait fish that they're keying in on than anything else like that. And I don't think that they see that around those weed edges quite as much. So for me, if I find a hard bottom spot, like a rock hump, a point that comes out, like that's a spot that I'm probably going to look at throwing it a little bit more. And I work it like a jerk bait. Growing up in the clear waters of Dora County, me and a couple of buddies, we did a couple things. We'd catch crayfish at night and we'd sell them to the perch fishermen, or we had a big seine net and we'd go catch minnows. So I had a lot of times watching these groups of bait fish move around and how they dart and how they move. So just varying those twitches and trying to work that urchin bait where it's puffing. And before this, we talked to me. I think that jellyfish action, that if you watch a video on how a jellyfish moves, like now we're talking urchins and jellyfish for freshwater bass. This makes so much sense. But getting that movement where it's going boop, boop, and coming up and rising and then kind of settling back down, boop, boop. That's the action that works best for me.
I think you and I were talking too about the rate of fall.
Mm-hmm.
So many guys, I think you'll understand this. I've got a mutual friend of ours, Marcus, lives in northern Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. He's always with swim bait. I need to get it down there faster. Need a faster sink. Well, then it doesn't do what it needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't swim the same. There's a point of diminishing return there. With me playing with the urchin, I mean, you talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. It's like, man, what weight do you throw on it? Well, geez, everyone's different. But I think once you figure out a weight that works on that urchin, you either have to be patient to let it get down at depth, or you changing the weight is not going to help you get bit more.
Well, and I've experienced that too. And the hook that I like that single hook. It's the one Cliff Base put out that's got the weight molder right on it. I prefer a single hook. My hookup ratio has been really good. My landing ratio has been really good on that. But I tried switching weights and I went to a little bit heavier. I'm like, maybe it's summertime. Maybe I need a little bit more action. Maybe I need to be able to twitch it a little faster and have it a little more erratic. That did not work out for the fish. It worked out great in my head. I thought it was a great plan. It did not work out for the fish. So with the urchins that I'm throwing, there's one particular weight that seems to work better than the other ones in my box.
Being a swim bait guy, I can tie it right back to glide bait fishing. It fishes very, very similar to a glide bait, and not in the way that it's moving side to side whatsoever, because it doesn't. But you want that thing, when you stop it and let that thing flare, you want it to suspend as much as possible. You do not want that thing sinking. You want that twitch and flare and just stay there. And then when you go to twitch it again, it's just kind of sitting still and that thing folds right back up again.
Yep.
And, we've said it before on this podcast. I've talked about it. That's why it gets bit, is that flare and then sucking back in. It's all that movement in such a short distance, just like a glide bait. The glide baits, it's different in that it's traveling side to side, a long distance side to side in such a short distance back to the boat. Same deal. And the best glide baits, when you stop them, it all depends on water temperature too. Hotter water, colder water, that's going to affect the way that bait sinks. But the best glide baits out there, when you stop them, they will just sit there and hang. And I can't tell you how many fish I've watched follow a glide bait to the boat, and you go and twitch the thing, make it 180 and sit there totally perpendicular to that fish where it's T-bone ready. That fish will come up and they won't smoke it. A lot of them won't smoke it. They'll just come up and grab that bottom hook. Grab the bottom of the bait in between the hooks.
Right. And with the urchin, that movement from big to small, like if you watch natural movements of things grouped together, like if you're watching minnows dart in a ball, like that shape shifting, like the barn swallows and the starlings when they're grouped up here, like
They all turn their back to you, and it looks like there's a million birds. They all turn their side to you, and all of a sudden, half of them disappear.
Yeah, when they're moving in groups, there's a whole lot of shape shifting that goes on. So recreating that movement is what it is. Now, I found later into summer that bait's not working nearly as well for me. So coming out of spring, and I don't think this is a mistake at all. Like, we have our bigger fish spawn early in that colder water, then it goes, perch are a little bit of an exception. They're a cold water spawner, but the perch and the walleye in the northern, and we start getting those fry, and they start growing bigger and bigger as this other spawns continue to go on. But now that post spawn is pretty much completely done with, we've had some growing seasons and things have started to scatter. I'm not getting bit the same way that I was.
It seemed like you had about, because of everybody I know, you probably, I would say of everybody I know, you've caught more urchin fish here than anybody I know. And I know you were pretty excited about it for a while, and it was like right about the time, 2 to 3 weeks after that last bluegill spawn wave, which is generally here is when you start seeing the fish really start to key in on crayfish. That's when all of a sudden, it wasn't really a conversation topic when me and you would talk. Not that I was asking you every time, but it definitely seemed like by mid-July, it started really tapering off.
Yeah, and where I've been fishing more lately hasn't had that hard bottom, hasn't had those same type of hard pieces of structure. Like, I think if you have places where you have lay down trees and some bushes or something that you're fishing where those pods of bait fish are going to gravitate to, like for us on weed edges, like it's hard to throw that thing through there effectively.
Well, and I think the background's too busy that they have a lot harder time keying in on something that looks the way that does.
I'd agree with that too. But yeah, for me, it's a hard structure, hard bottom bait that works really well. I think it's effective on docks, and we saw that down at Santee.
Yeah, but a lot of
Elite Series, but
a lot of our docks, there's so much vegetation around them that I don't know. Even if you weren't hanging the hook on weeds, I don't know how good it would be unless it's just under the dock.
Yeah.
As soon as you get all the way from the dock, unless the guy that owns the dock or the family that owns the dock is raking the weeds, like I don't think yes, it moves a lot of water, but those bass are still sight feeders. They need to use it.
It goes right back to when we talked about it with Canterbury. We talked about the visual thing, and I mentioned purple. There's a lot of people that called BS on the whole purple thing, but I've put it into practice. Like, the whole reason I'm throwing that is so they can see it from a long ways away. And maybe they can't see purple better than they can see red. But for some reason, I feel like I am getting more bites, or I'm getting that bait more visual with the purple. I'm pulling fish from further away. That's how I should say it. I'm seeing it with the live sonar. I am pulling fish from further away with the purple than any other color. And I'm not throwing bright red. Maybe bright red will do the same thing because they can see red better than purple. But they've scientifically proven that. I haven't done, all the research on that, but it's a visual bait. It is 100% a visual bait. And if you're covered up with weeds and they're not seeing it, you're not taking advantage of that visual deal.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm a big fan of purple too. I mean, I have been whether it was a smoke purple tube, a lot of the drop shot stuff we did, a lot of purple there. I'm a big fan of purple. I agree with what you're saying. I don't call the BS on that at all. I think maybe it just has, like, I have a hard time throwing bright red. There's a couple of exceptions in crankbait in early and spring. It's a little bit easier, but if I find something with a purple hue, to me, and fishing is mental as much as anything else, right? So that purple has got slightly more natural tones to it. It makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I'm going to work that bait better with it being purple.
I think with the purple you're throwing, which he's seen. Right. right? Because I got some of those baits as well that you do. One, it's dark enough purple that, if you looked at that under a black and white camera, it looks like a really, really dark smoke, right?
Yeah.
So it's dark enough that it's not fully transparent and it's not fully opaque. But I'd say it's closer to opaque.
Silhouette.
Yeah, it's closer to opaque than, and then here especially, like, okay, let's say that those are bluegill fry. Every single bluegill has a purple hue to it. Like the flash you get off a bluegill is usually green or purple or a combination of both. They do have some blue iridescence, but mostly that flash, especially on a female that's a little lighter colored, or that bluegill's in dirty or stained water, you're getting way more purple off of it than you're not. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think you're hitting multiple things with that color purple. I've thrown it in dirty water, I've thrown it on the river. I like the color of it. I like I guess not so much I like the color of it, but I like the opacity of it, or how much what distance into that water disappears at. So, well, do I want something that's, light purple, transparent? No, not really, but maybe in clearer water, maybe that is better. But I don't know. To me, it's like, it doesn't have anything negative or anything overly positive to it. It's just, I feel like that dark purple that you like just can work anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
Where green pumpkin is opaque.
When you were talking about the fry disappearing, and your small bait fish this time of year, getting more spread out and not balled up, and grass being a part of that, do your bait fish not, I know you don't have shad up there, but do your bait fish not group up around grass beds for the most part?
From what I
Including
see,
small bluegill.
Yeah, from what I see, I'll see groups of them, but I don't think they ball as tight. I think from what I'm seeing, so if I'm on a weed flat, you'll see more of them popping individually, like they're more spread out, I guess, rather than group tight. Now, are there times when they're going to be group tight? I think wind driven current on the front edge of those weeds piles them up, stacks them up a little bit differently. If you're looking at some sort of cover that dictates that. But if it's calmer, I feel like they spread out a lot more than what I would like them to.
And I think they get into the weeds, they get into the cover, they have the opportunity to really get into stuff that's, it's easy for them to get hidden. So they're not as visible. Yes, are they there? Is that still there? Yes. But the amount of work a fish has to put into to effectively feed on balls of that size of bait, in my mind, it would make sense that they're not targeting that as much. They're going to target larger bluegill, crayfish, because we have such a short growing season. They can't justify, and they have access to so much more efficient forms of food that I don't think they're targeting that post spawn into the bluegill spawn period. You see so many fry here, whether it's bullhead fry, whether it's bluegill fry, bass fry, could be perch fry, could be walleye fry, it could be a laundry list of different things. But when you see fry in a small ball, like that ball is the size of a baseball to maybe a softball, right? That doesn't exist right now per se a lot of times. Maybe if you're seeing some bullheads or something, but so that time of year really, I think, plays into that urchin just looking right. I'm sure if you're in a hard bottom area and you don't have the vegetation around and there's fish there and you throw the urchin, you're going to get bit on an urchin, right? Yeah. But the bass aren't cruising the bank and feeding on fry that's off the end of a Christmas tree that tipped into the water or around a dock post. You don't see that stuff going on this time of year. You don't see the balls of fry, and you don't see the bass behaving in that manner.
The other thing too that I think happens with our weed growth is, with our coontail and our cabbage and everything else like that, when we start getting into that 5 to 8 feet of water where we're still getting that weed growth, those bluegills and the bass and the panfish will be down in the stalks. Those fry, for self-preservation, get up more into the canopy. So they do spread out a little bit more. They might be kind of grouped up, but they're more in that canopy where, if you've never done it and you have access to an underwater camera and you drop that down into a weed bed, it will change the way you fish and the way that you understand how those fish position. Because you drop that
100%.
down in there and you start realizing how much room you have from the bottom to where that canopy starts to be real heavy. To Curt's point, when that bass is looking to feed and his feeding window is short and that growing season is short, he's going for the steak rather than the French fries. So he's not going to go fight through that canopy to try and get a mouthful of weeds and a few fry or a few small minnows. He's going to be down in the stalks feeding on something that's more available.
And you see the fry sort of, even minnows, even mud minnows and anything else, shiners, you see them spread out horizontally.
Mm-hmm.
So they're no longer a ball. They're more in an oil slick type fashion of distribution.
Yeah, we used to refer to it more as the bait fish flotilla, because it would start going so horizontal. It wouldn't be stacked here, right? Like early in the season, Bay of Green Bay, alewife are back now, which is fantastic for the fishery. Even the balls of smelt, like we know what these are. They're balls of smelt, and they're waves of alewife that are coming in. They're grouped in that cold water. They're always grouped tight, and they're taller. This time of the year, the shiners, golden shiners, all those shiners, we say there's a flotilla of it because it is spread out for yards.
Yeah.
So
you'll have 6 inches of depth and 6 feet circle of bait fish.
So
certainly, when you talked about
go ahead.
When you talked about grass and it not being all that effective with grass, our grass is different. Like when I'm fishing out at the desert, one scenario that I see happening here in the pretty near future, and I may be completely wrong, but one scenario that I see happening out in the desert, all the grass out there, for the most part, it's isolated clumps. Whether it be in 5 foot of water or out in 20 foot of water, it's isolated clumps. And these isolated clumps are like their own ecosystem. In between the two, you got nothing. It's the Dead Sea. It's like the moon. There's nothing there. But around those clumps, there is life. And you'll see little schools of bluegill on the tops of these clumps, whether it's right on top of it or suspended 2 feet over the top. That's where I can see that urchin really being a player around the grass, because it's isolated stuff, and it's a lot more visual. Those fish will hang around the edges, whether it's the inside edge or the outside edge. Sometimes they'll get up on top of it, but if you have those bluegill suspended over the top and those fish are coming up over the top and eating them, that's where I can see the urchin really working well over grass.
The only thing that I think about the urchin, though, is balls of fry do not move the same as a ball of bait fish. The look is different. And I feel like that urchin really looks like a ball of fry, but it does not move like a ball of bait fish.
No, it's not as erratic.
The similarity, no, it's not as erratic, like you said, exactly. They'll get tight and they'll disperse. They'll get tight and they'll disperse. And they will get shifty left and right.
But the whole...
But no,
I just feel like fry moves a little less, or moves more independent. Each thing in it, each bait fish in the ball of fry just moves different in my mind. And that's where I'm like, I don't know if I'm around, like you're saying, I don't know if it's gonna be the same as when they are actually feeding on fry.
In my head too, though, I don't think I'm completely 100% sold on that they think it's fry. I think it's just, they eat it because of the way that it moves. And I don't know that, they're thinking fry. That thing's folding up and it's flaring out. And I don't know. We're still really in the early stages of learning this thing. It's really just taken off this year.
I think that it's still a natural movement, whether it's fry, minnows, or anything else like that. It is that flare and open up, and just watching just watching how those things move. Whether the left and right movement is certainly going to not be imitated with the urchin, but it's that opening and closing of the pause and the stop. Like when it gets big and it's kind of holding there, then all of a sudden it moves forward, it tightens up and goes. Like, I think that's probably it's the movement of it that way. But
yeah,
the other thing is, I don't know. I don't know if I really care, because because the way that I'm working it, they either eat it or they don't. And when they're eating it, cool. I could care less what they think it is.
Yep. And if they're not, pick up something different.
Eventually, it's going to become something that is just, they're conditioned to, just like any other bait, where when everything's right, like when they're really keyed in on crayfish, like on the Wapaka chain, and late in the summer, that those crayfish really are orange. If you don't have orange in your jig, you're not getting bit. As clear as that water is, it's like you can damn near throw a whole orange jig with no any color on it, and they'll eat it. They're just so keyed into that orange.
Yeah, I could probably throw a clementine out there without any appendages on, with a single hook run through, and probably catch them on it.
Yep. So I think eventually you're going to see that with the urchin, and the proof in that is, look at Japan. Japan's had an urchin for forever. I wonder how many people in Japan went into their stock room of fishing tackle and made a bunch of money on eBay selling urchins that they ain't used in, 10 years.
And you don't see videos coming out of Japan of people smoking them on the urchin either.
No.
I wonder though, the Japanese have such a tendency to get into a incredible level of precision with their finesse presentations. I think what we did with it here was really turn it more into a power in your face kind of presentation. They tell me, or what I've heard, I shouldn't say they tell me, what I've heard is, originally designed for topwater. Well, that boggles my mind. I would never think about throwing that as a topwater type of presentation. But I would consider throwing it with some weight on it and being able to twitch it the way that we are. Like, I don't know. This might have been one that they kind of missed the mark on. Like when Koya was doing it and Taku was doing it in the early stages, and they were kind of drop shotting and stuff like that. That screams to me that they probably didn't have the presentation style that we're seeing now. Like, for whatever reason, it just worked better in that finesse, and it was brand new. As we've evolved with it, I don't think of it as a finesse presentation in any way, shape, or form.
And I don't know about you two, but I've had a lot of fish where I sort of work my cast, and I'm like ready to reel in and make another cast. I start reeling that thing, and halfway back to the boat, I get smoked. Straight reeling the dang thing. Now,
I've had a couple like that.
Yeah, I'm sure that fish was following it. We've had that with jerk baits and everything else, right? But there's something to that all of a sudden now that collapse and just powering through the water, other than not having something flappy off the back of it like a swim jig, it looks like a swim jig, So
yeah, I would like to see a slightly smaller core with longer appendages on it to get more of that big open and tighter close. I would like to see that evolution, and I don't know how they do it in the molds or whatever. And again, I'm not going out to make one, but if somebody does, that's what I'd like to see. But I think that might be something
options too.
Right. And the other thing is, like, the TPE and that type of plastic significantly better than the dice style. Like that, I've caught a couple fish on the silicone added dice style bait, but to me it's just.
I really think the biggest thing with the dice versus the urchin is that's like saying my crankbait's like my jerk bait.
Yeah.
They have bills and treble hook.
It's completely two different things. Right.
Yeah.
Too many people ball that up. I think that's why so many people tried the urchin and never went anywhere with it. It's not like the urchin was just here just recently. Like it's been around and seems like is really grabbing traction. The more people fish bigger ones and power fish it, than what that urchin. I remember people saying, that urchin isn't any good. The dice bait's better. Well, you're trying to fish the two the same way then in that aspect. If you're making that comparison, I'd be like saying, that 5DXT isn't as good as my Pointer 100 jerkbait or my Vision 110. Well, yeah, it's not meant to do the same thing. It's got treble hooks and a bill.
5XT.
Yeah, right. Like that's how it's for. So I don't know. It's interesting to see. Just like everything else, it's going to evolve. It'll always. I think it's something that'll always be a staple as they become more readily available. But it isn't. I don't think it's going to be a Yamamoto Senko.
I was literally just going to say it is not going to be a Senko. The Senko is the only thing, with the exception of maybe the drop shot and the drop shot at a lesser level. The Senko is the only thing that always has and always will catch fish in almost every scenario.
Speaking of drop shotting, both of us, well, you two both have had a conversation about drop shotting worms with me recently. I don't remember which one of you I sent the link to.
Got it.
You got it? Did you get a link from me about the new roboworm color?
So. Oh, yeah. You sent that to me.
Okay.
The Margarita Mutilator and Morning Dawn
blend. Oh, I am so excited for that.
Oh, my goodness.
I think both of us.
Purple.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah.
I like green pumpkin and purple together, and then if you happen to snag a bluegill in the body of water that you're fishing, you understand exactly why.
Yeah, Marcus's favorite color. It's not green pumpkin candy; it's green pumpkin purple and blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah,
it's a lot of green pumpkin and a lot of purple in my boat, and a lot of combo.
Have you, going thinking about forward-facing sonar and some of the technology talk? One of the things I did this year too was watching different crankbait retrieves. Like people that straight crank or a crankbait back to the boat are really missing out on a lot of opportunities. And water temperature changes the way that those fish react a lot of time, and like stopping and pausing. And that's one of the things I've used forward-facing this year. Watching how that crankbait comes back, and your different crankbaits have a whole lot of different styles to them as far as how they float, how they suspend, how they don't. That's one of the things that I've really enjoyed watching. Is I had a day this year. Oh man, I got out there and started cranking on it.
Hang on a second. As we're talking about the purple thing, someone just commented on that video about purple's the worst. It just came across my screen.
Really?
Before we get, so because I get my notifications on my MacBook too. So yeah, somebody just commented.
I saw the pop up.
Yeah,
that's funny. I didn't go and look at it, but I saw the pop up of Facebook. Yeah, that's funny.
Before you get into the crankbait thing, because that's one thing we did the crankbait video.
Yeah,
we wanted you on the crankbait video because for years you've thought out of the box, especially locally on the whole crankbait thing. But I have to use the bathroom, so let's take a little break here, quick, and then we'll get on that crankbait thing. Because I think Marcus has some really good insight above and beyond just talking about forward-facing sonar relating to that.
Yeah, in that episode we talked about forward-facing sonar and crankbaits and how crankbaits are going to make a big comeback. So let's get on that topic for sure. All right, so we in the crankbait episode that we did, we talked about how forward-facing sonar is going to change that, and how I see crankbaits making a huge comeback, especially in the professional side of things. with forward-facing sonar being implemented with that. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes. Being able to cast a crankbait out past a grass bed, like, the isolated grass beds that we were just talking about fishing the urchin over, being able to cast a crankbait past it, stop that thing right at the edge, and then speed it up, watching exactly what that bait is doing, when it's doing it, and how those fish are reacting. Go ahead and jump into what you wanted to talk about with that, Marcus, and we'll expand.
Yeah, just for me, what I've been able to see is, you're always, Timmy Horton said it a long time ago that your crankbait is like 90% more effective when you're banging off a cover, banging off the bottom. I think it's always been hard to visualize the amount of deflection or the amount of action that impact has with it. So watching forward facing sonar, I'll speed crank that thing down and be able to hit the bottom. And I can't believe the amount of deflection that I get, like how much that thing will shoot up sometimes, or even watching what certain crankbaits do on a pause, like a slow rise versus a fast rise, or some things that you think are probably suspend way better than you ever thought they would. And seeing the fish's reaction to that, like there was a day, started off strong with the crankbait, finished with the urchin, but the way that I was fishing that crankbait originally was I was just kind of reeling and going tick, 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 tick across the bottom. I got one fish. And I knew there were more out there on this particular rock finger. And I was starting to cast. I'm like, well, I always like the speed cranking concept too. And you've talked about, and Matt and Tim have talked about, Adam, all about that speed cranking too. I'm like, well, I wonder if I speed crank this thing and just go three, 4 hard reels. And then all of a sudden I'm watching on forward facing sonar, I go boom, 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 crank that thing down. And it banged off a rock. And that thing, like, almost, it looked like it was going to just shoot out of the cone and start reeling again and see the water displacement and everything shoot out, and then just bang, deflect back off. And then I keep doing that, and the fish started triggering on that really, really hard. I went out slightly deeper where I wasn't able to make that bottom contact, and then just go boom, boom, boom. And I had the right crankbait on where it would just sit and hover. And then do that same thing, and it would kind of slowly dive down. It was at the bottom of its arc, and that thing would just sit there. And then I just go do, sit there, do, sit there. And it's going to give you the opportunity to refine your cranking. Curt talks about being intentional with he fishes a chatterbait in a way that a lot of people don't fish, but he's being super intentional with what it is that he's doing and trying to feel his way through it. That's going to be happening a lot more with your crankbait fishing, just watching your inputs in live, with the sonar.
That's something. It's probably been since me and you fished together, but me and you always enjoyed crankbait fishing. So it's been a long time since I've been on some truly good crankbait bites outside of fishing the river.
Mm-hmm.
And fishing the river is just so much about just hitting the right target areas where those fish are holding up, because they're not just scattered out. The current's too strong. They're hiding behind things and stuff. But you start dealing with lakes. So you talked about, and this is something that we didn't talk a lot in the podcast about crankbaiting, but tuning a crankbait. The importance about tuning a crankbait is if you have a 12-foot deep diving crankbait and it veers off left or right slightly, for every foot it veers left or right, you lose a foot of depth, right?
Yep.
Now think about, I'm cranking an 8-foot flat. The right crankbaits will wander left or right a lot. But if they are using all that energy because you're throwing a 10-foot diving crankbait in 8 foot of water, it can't wander left or right as much. Now, if you're trying to do what you described, where you went out deeper and you're just trying to get it, and then it sits there and then slowly starts gaining back, height in the water column, and then you again. Well, then you want to have something that you're just barely ticking bottom with. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't want it to start. And cold water, that is a big thing. You want it to not be erratic. You want to sort of be able to get it there and crank real slow and just get it to burp, 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 and
just touching.
Yeah, not be veering left or right. But if you're speed cranking, I think it's really important on those shallow flats is you want that crankbait, imagine it like a jerk bait. You want it to deflect and shoot way off a cover. So I want a 14-foot or a 12-foot at minimum, maybe even a 16-foot deep diving crankbait in 8 feet of water, because that's going to allow that thing to turn, veer away from the boat or away from your casting angle and keep digging as it goes away from you, because you're maxing it out, purposely making it run off tune, right? You're making it through bottom contact and deflections, making it run wide left or right.
It wants to dig harder, and in that depth range, it's by wanting to dig harder, it's going to want to find its way around. I mean, it wants to go deeper, but it can't. So it's going to find its way to dig, and digging, it's going to push it out to the side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and what I encourage people to do is, if you have a pond, body of water that's clear, that's got some shallow water with some chunk rock to it, softball rock to it, and sand mixed in, you want to understand how a square bill works, you've got to go watch how a square bill works. And then you'll want to fish a square bill way more, because of it, it is so erratic in how it works. And you have to trust. The hardest thing I think for people to grasp is when you're throwing a crankbait and you're trying to make contact, is you have to trust that that bait is actually doing something and you're not going to snag up. And like, for me, that was one of the biggest things throwing a crankbait is I got to learn that this thing is running at the right angle, that I could throw it on these jagged rocks, that's not going to get hung up and it's actually going to bang off and get to the side. Like, pick up a square bill that you think the body's probably bigger than it should be for where you're fishing, and it's got the pig sticker hooks on it. And we got some of those around here. We're like, Curt and I started doing some square bill fishing. We're like, this thing looks kind of dumb. There's no way they're going to eat this thing. And then we start going and banging it around, and we're getting fish on it and everything else like that. But we took the time to really throw that thing on some flats that were shallower than they probably should have been fished, but it gave us the opportunity to really see and gain the confidence that we could bang this thing off of trees, we could bang this thing off a rock, and then when you could put a crankbait in a spot that most people don't cast a crankbait to, that's what it comes down to. Is I got the visual from doing it in the shallow water and watching how it works and not hanging up.
How that bait will hunt.
That bait will hunt in such a way that I have confidence to throw it where a lot of people won't, because I'll get that $15 crankbait back on the cast without having to drop a 4-ounce sinker down to get it. You know, but it's hard as fishermen. Sometimes we just want to go out and catch instead of sit back and take the time to pick up a bait and see what it actually does.
And if you think, and Adam is the one that taught me this, and it's something that I know me and you carried over to the weed cranking, because that was something that you taught me. Mm-hmm. The downsizing your treble hooks. You're never going to get bit if you don't put the bait in there. So downsize the treble hooks. Yeah, you might lose a fish here and there because the treble hook isn't getting it far enough away from the body of the bait, but that's better than never getting bit on it, because you never threw it into the cover in the first place. But I like to, especially on a rear treble hook, I feel like the rear treble hook's number one you should downsize. I think you could downsize the rear treble hook on every crankbait you buy. You know? Yeah. Put smaller, better treble hooks on it. That's what I don't know that I've ever lost a fish because I changed out a treble hook to a smaller treble hook. Yeah, I can't say that I have, but some people just think that because they look at it and it's like, oh, the bite between the hook point and the bait isn't as big as it should be. No, and if you do lose them, it's possible that you're throwing the wrong rod. I think it's more likely they just didn't eat it good. Maybe. More than, I mean, a lot of fish that I catch on a crankbait, you could treble them around the boat on a flipping stick.
I would say that you've probably had more times where those crankbaits were factory size and got tangled up together that you missed fish on more than you actually lost them on that too.
Yeah.
Curt and I like throwing the same Spro crankbait. But that thing, if you don't change the treble hooks out on that, you can't get within 5 feet of a tree without it wanting to grab on. And then if it doesn't grab on, those two treble hooks lock together an unbelievable amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like that smaller treble on there too, just from the standpoint that I think that gives it a little bit more wiggle on the back end.
I like a lot of Spro crankbaits. So which one are you talking about?
Oh, most of those Little Johns.
Yeah, you throw that one more than I throw it.
That's because I don't have many crankbaits. Just went to the ones on work.
You know where they're hanging.
Yeah, well, that and the Normans, I just haven't. Where we used to throw, we used to use a fair amount of crankbaiting and in the weeds, and that Norman crankbait, man, that thing, it was the bait for throwing in the weeds just because of how it floated back up.
And once it's tuned straight, like it stays straight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the bill angle relative to the body and the way it tracks when it's diving, I think it's just there's a lot of things going on with that bait that make it better for weeds than a lot of other baits.
Yeah, don't do it with a bandit.
Nope,
that'll curly cue and swirl around the weeds and the cover that you're fishing it on. Yeah, that's the other thing too, learning what that bait does when you stop it. Because of how fish are reacting to certain baits, that'll come into play on the pause. I mean,
and you do want a fairly buoyant crankbait for that.
Oh yeah,
that's probably another thing. When we talked about crankbaiting, I did talk about the weed cranking. I probably didn't talk about that enough. Is like you want a super buoyant crankbait. You don't want one that slow floats or anything like that. You know, so a lot of these more modern depth reaching crankbaits, they're not buoyant enough.
No.
No, I think the next episode that we have planned, I got a friend of mine that's going to come on and we're going to talk strictly forward facing sonar and how we're using it, you know, not typically the way guys are using it, pinging fish and throwing at certain fish, how we're using it around grass, trees, rock, every scenario that we can possibly think of. And like we said, it has changed my crankbait fishing, and watching how fish react, watching your bait approach certain types of structure, pulling it through a tree. Like you're watching it approach that tree. You're anticipating feeling that bait hit the tree, and then you're varying your retrieve speed or your rod pull accordingly. You're gonna lose less baits. Rather than winding right through the middle of a tree, ticking it up over the top, you know, all of that forward-facing sonar is going to change all of that. And you're going to see that at the elite level, you know, whether it's the elites or MLF or, you know, NPFL, all of it. You're going to see crankbaits start to be a much bigger player in all tournaments.
I remember, like, and I know you'll remember this, all three of us were with St. Croix for a long time. They had a really good line of fiberglass rods for cranking for forever. You know, they were like matte blue. And then them and G. Loomis, I think, were like the first ones to really do the carbon fiber crankbait rods. And like that changed the game for me with crankbaits, because I started to be able to, through that rod, if you had everything matched up right, and the reel matters as much as that rod as far as feeling what that bait's truly doing in the water. You gain that sensitivity that you could feel your line, especially with fluorocarbon now. You can feel your line coming over weeds or coming over a log before your bait ever gets there. But fiberglass, I don't feel you get that level of sensation out of it, or composite. Yes, you get the right balance and everything. You can really feel your bait's vibration. And if you're smart enough and done it enough, yes, you can then feel like, oh, my vibration changed a little bit in that crankbait. Versus with the carbon fiber crankbait rods, you can literally feel the resistance that is the line over the stick, not the lack of sensation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing, and I keep saying I'm going to try doing it, but that weed cranking where that was so critical to feel exactly, and we're cranking with braid on a crankbait blank that is a Legend Elite. And that's, you can't get a much more sensitive blank than a Legend Elite St. Croix, right? It was a major difference when we were using those modern Gen 1 BB1s that David Fritz was big on, and they didn't put the anti-reverse bearing in it. Those reels, because that anti-reverse bearing takes away that rearward resistance, it blocks all of that through the rear handle. You could feel so much more with a crankbait. That's one of the few products that I'm just like, that is a real shame that doesn't exist anymore. I've looked at like, what type of bearing can I put in a Shimano Bantam, or a Corrado to make it what that reel was? Because they just had a bushing in there or a bearing in there. It was the same frame and everything was pretty much the same. But yeah, it made a major deal. And yes, it costs a little more money, but we all play with so many guys when it talks about crankbaiting. It's close enough. There's a million different crankbaits. And essentially at the end of the day, there's probably like 5 different powers and actions of crankbait rods. And I think a guy really owes himself to play with a few different rods per bait, because the depth of the bait dive doesn't always dictate what stiffness of crankbait blank you should be using. It's how hard does that bait pull? Are you trying to deflect off a hard cover? Are you deflecting off of vegetation? Are you throwing it with braid? If you want to just shorten the learning curve of understanding the sensitivity or the feel of a crankbait, use 1 power softer crankbait rod and throw 20-pound braid on it.
Yep.
You're gonna learn a lot real quick if you make that transition. It's something I know that my friend Tanner, he's been so close to pulling the trigger on just saying, I'm just cranking with braid to an FG knot all the time. I've tried it with jerkbait fishing. I can't get a hang of it. But I got to fish a low stretch line for my jerkbaiting anyway, because I blow up baits a lot of times with how hard I work them.
I just got 5 crankbait blanks through you, and I'm building all 5 of them right now. And my wife mentioned, she's like, I don't understand why you have to have so many rods for what you do. I'm like, well, you don't fish, so I can't explain it to you. But it matters. It absolutely matters. It makes such a huge difference. To a fisherman, you can explain that, but it's to some fishermen, you can't even explain that. To the ones that are going in depth, to the in depth reaches that we are with this kind of stuff, you can explain it to those people that 1 power heavier or 1 power softer makes all the difference in the world.
Ask your wife how many clippers and shears she has for cutting hair.
Right?
How many different brushes?
Easier to explain to the everyday person, but yeah. Exactly.
How many different brushes does she have for makeup?
I know.
Yes. Could we all get away with? Rick Klum for years fished like everything on the same foot, 7 foot heavy.
Because he knew how everything felt based off of that.
Yeah. He was very, very proficient with that one rod. Granted, that's an old school heavy. Like that's more like a modern, current 7 foot medium heavy mod fast. That's not a heavy in our terms today.
But when you're trying to dial something in the way we are,
right,
1 power heavier, 1 power lighter makes everything.
Yeah, it's as crazy as you want to get with it now too. I mean, the sky's the limit on all these things. It's
I've had 1 power difference in a crankbait rod make all the difference in the world of me being able to feel my bait's about to snag and give it slack so I don't snag, and feel fish push water and follow a bait. They'll just like you talk swim bait, you can feel a fish push water over bait. 1 power change in a crankbait, you get that. Now, jerk bait, I feel like for you, I think jerk baits are very individual. What works for me may not work for you. But when you sort of find the right one, it's just the right one. Right?
Yep.
Flipping sticks. I can pick one length and 1 power that I can do 90% of my flipping on, no matter what bait or weight I put on it. Frog rod. I can pick 1 frog rod that's going to do all of my frog fishing, from a toad all the way up to a slop. Yes, it might be less proficient at one thing or another, but it's close enough. I don't think you can't throw a 5XD on the same rod you throw a 10XD on. You can't. A 3XD does not work on a rod you throw a 6XD on.
Nope.
For varying reasons.
and
Doesn't cast right.
Your square bill needs a different set of parameters for that rod versus your diving crankbait.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could probably get away with a 6XD on a rod I'd love to throw a square bill on, but do I want to use a 7-footer for a 6XD? Not particularly.
No, and some of that comes down to the simple fact of what you're doing with hooks and everything else like that on your square bill versus your diving, and and how you need to set the hook or what you're pulling them out of too. Like that's as much as anything. Like if we're really getting to it, I'm pretty utilitarian as far as what I would need to fish.
Yeah.
Like I could get really bare bones and do just fine. I'm happy that I have the opportunity not to be that way. And Curt, when we were building rods and looking at blanks and started understanding that made a huge difference. But for me, the importance of being able to pull them out of the nasty stuff I want to fish, being able to use the rod to be able to do that, still work the bait, but be able to get it out of where I need to. Because there's been a lot of times I've lost fish because I didn't have the right weapon. And you guys were talking about that with line and how that comes up too. Like when to use fluorocarbon, when to use braid. It's, for a long period of time when braid first came out, we thought it was one size fits all. This is the thing that fixes most of your problems. And then we found out that it was actually causing problems. And fluorocarbon is ever changing, and they're doing more on the science end of that too. So being able to use the right setup to be able to get the fish out of where I want to fish it.
Mm-hmm.
That dictates a lot of my rod usage.
You can use a pretty small set of rod design parameters to fish everything that we fish on average as a bass fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I talk to people a lot. Like you talk to whatever pro angler. Well, I just use this. Seth Fighter. He uses a lot of short, lower power stuff, braid to a leader for his pitching and flipping stuff. Seth's a great fisherman. What's his hook to land ratio? That's what works for him, but that doesn't mean it isn't better. And what I can say of being in the fishing industry for 25 years plus, the best fishermen in the world are the best fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
They're good at catching fish, but most of them will just look at you and say, well, that's just what I use. That's what I use. Because that's what their sponsor has, or that's what they've always used, or somebody else told them that. Most of them will never tell you that they sat down and considered, did I lose a fish because my rod doesn't have the right action? They might blame it on a hook. They might blame it on their hook set. They might blame it on a lot of things, right down to, you know what? Sometimes you just don't catch them. But when you talk to someone who truly designs product in this industry, the first thing you look at is the human being's a variable. I cannot change the human being, but how do I make a better tool for that human being to be more consistent? That's the difference between what a pro angler will tell you and a true product designer will tell you. A product designer is going to be able to tell you, oh, you're like I'm a slackliner. What I want out of a flipping stick is generally different than a guy that's a lean and reel guy, right? I've got to do I use fluorocarbon or braid when I'm punching? Some guys punch fluorocarbon. Your rod needs to be different to be efficient versus a guy that fishes the other line. So, a person's got to play their own game of themselves and sort of just be conscious about what they're doing, be deliberate, whether it's how you fish a bait or what you're using to fish the bait.
The perfect example of
Go ahead.
Good. So the perfect example of that, I watch all of Brandon Polinick's stuff. He's got one of the best series as far as coverage of his tournaments go. He loses so many fish. If he landed half of the fish that he loses, he'd be right there in Angler of the Year running every single year. And I don't know I know he's using a certain, a rod brand, but I don't know what certain rods he's using for every technique. So I'd really like to dig in with him. I'd like to have him come on here and talk about that. If he's open to doing it, but he's doing something wrong to lose those fish. What is it? I don't know. And is he taking the time to really dig into why he's losing those fish? I'm not sure. Is he just dump a fish, next cast, move on, not even think about it because he's getting enough bites to not have to worry about it? But when you're losing, a 5-pound fish, when you're catching 3-pounders and you lose that 1 5-pounder, that's the difference between making a cut or gaining 2 more pounds in the tournament and putting you that much closer to Angler of the Year. It's these guys' livelihoods, and if they're not paying attention to that, they're being dumb.
I have seen so many times you fish with somebody. I'm sure you have seen this as well. Guy doesn't think he's losing a lot of fish. You've seen me lose fish. It doesn't bother me all day. Like I don't get all worked up. Like, oh my God, we just lost the tournament because I lost that fish. I accept you're going to lose some fish.
Absolutely.
But if I lose a fish halfway to the boat, that does bother me, does it not? But it bothers me in the way of I want to understand why. How could I not lose that fish?
Yeah.
Sort of goes back to that old KVD aspect of if they're not eating your crankbait all the way, change colors.
Yeah.
Chartreuse sexy shad versus regular sexy shad. Maybe that's the difference between them eating with both treble hooks on your crankbait versus just swat at it. But I look at bait selection, whether that's color, style, type, whatever, rod action. I will tell you a lot of people really like these rods that when they flex them, they feel really fast and crisp. I've made this comment to both of you guys. If it was once, it's probably 1,000 times. Just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. And there are some rod companies building some tapers and designs that, it feels really good fishing it. It feels really good in the store. It feels super crisp, super fast. But it maybe fishes a bait really good, but it is not worth a snot when it comes to putting fish in the boat because it is fighting you the entire way you're trying to get a fish in the boat. I used to be one of those guys. It's like, I want everything fast. I want super crisp. I want just my tip doing this. The rest of the rod doesn't need to bend. I'll tell you, there's a lot of guys that are really big on this extra fast bandwagon of all my rods need to be extra fast. And a lot of companies, in my opinion, don't do it right. There's not enough midsection bend. There's not enough transition between your tip and your butt in power. And what transition is there's too short. And you lose fish because of it. That rod yanks a bait away from a fish. When a fish surges next to the boat, your hook tears holes. Yeah. A lot of companies have taken the shock absorption out of the rods to make them feel the way that some people tell them they want them to feel. We saw the opposite happen when braid and that transition happened. They made everything so slow. But people that have been proactive in that through rod building or just active with rod blends, I think the ones that know the best of what should be done or how things should be built are the ones that fished through the years of the very parabolic braid designed rods, fished through the years of the very stick, fast, extra fast rods. And all of them that I know are all sitting back today saying the same thing. You know, if you want an extra fast tip, that's what it should be, an extra fast tip. But is that on a fast action midsection and butt? Not. It's an extra fast tip on a stick. That'll lose you fish like nobody's business because it can't absorb anything. You bend hooks, you tear holes, you know.
The most important thing when I pick up a rod and feel the flex, feel the action of that rod, try and feel the power, the most important thing to me that I've learned for my personal fishing is that I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel any of that torque in my hand.
Yeah.
One, it gives a couple of things that we realized when the whole rod building thing started was there's some companies that don't build their rods on the spine. So you're going to feel that torque into your wrist. You're going to have a harder time setting hooks. You're going to have a harder time working baits because it's not on the spine.
You're going to feel the rotational torque.
Yep.
Of your rod wanting to twist in your hand, left or right.
The other thing is if I'm not feeling that torque into my hand, I have confidence that the rod is absorbing throughout the length of the rod. So if I see the right action on the tip that I want for the presentation that I'm envisioning that rod getting, and I could see the bend of that rod is where the power is in the length of that blank, and I'm not feeling the torque of either one of those two in my hand, then I think I'm on to something that's right. And
you helped me measure the last big batch of blank measurements I did. And we're not going to go into that because that's a whole nother to-do.
2 days.
But you can take 3 different blanks that are very, very comparable in design concept.
Mm-hmm.
But if the taper of that design, and that's how much it bends and where it bends at, you can build one flipping stick that the fish feels like it has you don't have it, and take another blank that's very, very similar. When you're fishing a bait, you probably will never notice a difference. But when you load it up on a fish, it feels like that rod pulls the fish out for you.
And as much on flipping sticks, like as much time as we spend with spinning rods now as bass fishermen compared to what we used to, that matters so much on a spinning rod where you're not feeling that torque through your wrist and your hand. You need the rod
100%.
to be, that rod has to be balanced and spaced out and have all those things right. So when that fish surges, the rod is doing the job it's supposed to be doing, and you're not twisting, bending, anything else like that, because when you end up losing fish on a spinning rod is when you got to make those movements that you don't want to make here. Yeah. You don't lose fish on a spinning rod when you're able to just keep them pinned here and keep that pressure on them. You lose fish on a spinning rod when you have to make movements because you're being torqued in a way you don't want to be moved.
There's one specific spinning rod blank, a drop shot rod, that comes to mind when you're talking about that. When I hook a fish on that thing and I'm fighting it halfway to the boat, I can feel it. Like, it feels like that fish is getting tired fighting that rod.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not working.
Nope.
Yeah. Like, I'm just holding the thing there. But that thing is struggling to fight against that rod the whole way back. And it feels so good. It feels so much different than most of the other rods that I'm using, drop shotting.
Mm-hmm.
I always pick up that rod because of it.
Right.
Other ones have a little bit, better tip for feeling, working the bait through cover or whatever, or shaking that bait, making that thing quiver just the slightest amount. And I can't do that with the rod that I'm talking about. But once you have a fish hooked on the rod that I'm talking about, dude, you got them. they're done. Once they get to the boat, they're finished.
And that's what you want out of a drop shot rod, because if you really want to start playing with the 6-pound test games, little tiny hooks and all this, you need that. You need that rod to do the work that protects your line, protects that hook, protects everything, so that you keep that fish buttoned up.
Yep. Yeah, and we start talking about big smallmouth around here. You're looking at 5 and 6 pounders in the middle of summer that think they're gymnasts and start doing all the tumble turns and everything else, and they come out of the water and you swear they're eye to eye with you when they start jumping out. That rod has to be able to absorb and react to everything that's doing. Because if you,
well, just think about on the Bay of Green Bay, you're fishing in 3-footers, not even 6-footers, not 4-footers, 3-footers.
Manageable.
A 3-pound smallmouth is going down when your boat's going up on the wave. That fish just got 3 times stronger than it is on flat, calm water, right?
Yep.
So you need to, so that versus the guy that's fishing Lake Gunnersville throwing a 6-inch robo worm on a drop shot or 7-inch robo worm on a drop shot. Those are 2 different rods. No matter how much the weight and all this stuff might be similar, those generally are going to be 2 very different rods. But it's really just the tip section. Because Gunnersville, you might catch an 8-pounder. The Bay of Green Bay, you might catch an 8-pounder, but for the most part, it's a smallmouth, and you're as worried as much about that surge that's created by the fish against the wave of movement of your boat. But yeah, that's the difference, the tip.
Yep.
On a smallmouth rod, I need something that I can shake a little tiny, 3-inch minnow and just make it quiver. Not worried about that if I'm throwing a 6 or 7-inch robo worm on a Tennessee River ledge.
Adam, when we're talking about drop shot, what's your stance on weight? Do you try and get it by with just enough, or are you a guy that wants to feel that bottom?
So I will always, or almost always, start with a 3/16. That is just like, if I'm tying up a drop shot, not even knowing where I'm going, I'm starting with a 3/16. It really depends on rate of fall. If I'm like, when I go out to the desert, if I'm fishing out in 30, 40 foot of water, and I want to get that thing, sometimes even 50 foot of water, if I want to get that thing down really quick, or if I want to make those fish react to the way that the bait is falling past them, I'll go all the way up to a half sometimes. But standard, I'm starting with a 3/16 and I'm going from there, and I'm adjusting. If I feel like it's all about, what's that?
What's your standard bait size or choice?
On average, 4-inch. Let's just say a 4-inch robo.
Okay.
If I'm going smaller, I'm going to a flatworm.
Yep.
If I'm going bigger, I'm going about as big as a 6-inch worm. The dice is a totally different conversation, but because that's it's bulky but compact, all in one. It's it's different.
It is what it is. We don't need to talk more about it. But I'm just curious because, what's your standard go-to? What do you start with?
If I'm fishing for green ones, I'm a 6 or 7-inch worm all the time.
Right, but what's your standard weight you start with?
I go heavier.
Yeah, I'm even for smallmouth. My standard's a quarter.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I jump up like. I've been trying to do a little bit more like power shotting and fishing stuff, and because I'm getting a mucky bottom, like I want to get that bait to I'm hitting down hard, I'll go to a 3/8. I'll go through, create that little puff, and then I got the bait floating up around that.
Our 6 and 7-inch robo worm stuff, I'm 3/8 for sure.
Yeah.
And then my smallmouth stuff.
You guys are starting that heavy.
Yeah.
But, here's the thing, though. Like the Bay of Green Bay, okay, if it's springtime and I'm throwing a 4-inch robo worm and 6 to 12 foot of water, yeah, I'm probably starting at a 3/16. That's probably the magic weight. But you start getting into the summertime. I mean, there's times where I've had to use a 3/4 ounce in 20 feet of water because I don't know what you call it, the riptide or whatever the heck is out there, current, like off the buoy. I've had it.
And that's the big difference between my waters and your waters. I don't have the big water here in San Diego at all.
Yeah.
Like we're surprised if it's whitecapping at all because of wind.
Yeah.
And then we don't have current. We have very, very little current. Yeah, we have some wind-driven current, but it is so minimal. It doesn't even. It's not affecting my bait choice. It's affecting how those fish are positioning on cover, but it's not affecting my weight choice whatsoever.
Yeah, like where we caught those fish tube fishing on the bay when you were here.
Yeah.
That would be an area that I would drop shot in the spring pre-spawn. Like one guy throw a tube or throw a hair jig, one guy just sort of drag or swim a drop shot, or like Winnebago, that's a big thing. Like swim bait on a drop shot, just keep it up off bottom a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3/16, maybe even an 1/8 is the right play for that. But that's like a niche-y thing, that's very.
Yep.
When we were there in the summer and it's a little bit deeper, or maybe I want to bring that drop shot out off that depression off on the ledge a little bit. Yeah, I'm probably going 1/4.
Yeah, I've gone to lighter. Like I've gone to an 1/8 or a 3/16, and channel markers aren't a secret. We see it on every elite series on a Great Lakes body of water and other places too. But I've gone to a lighter sinker on a drop shot with a slightly bigger worm than I would normally use, just because of the amount of fish that are suspending through the water column on some of these things, that they'll bite it on the way down. So I want that slower fall.
But then there's days that your outboard is even with the buoy and you're on the front deck of the boat facing into the wind and you're just dropping it off the side of your boat because that 3/4 ounce gets washed 20 feet horizontally in 20 feet of in 20 feet of water.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been on it for a long time and I don't have a whole lot of proof to go behind it other than being a kid and watching the sandbars happen and seeing water moving in and out around shoals and stuff like that too. But one, I think there's a residual current that lives in the Bay of Green Bay and attached to the Great Lakes. And I also think it's more tidal than what we think. It's not the big tidal swings that you see on tidal bodies of water, but there were days during certain moon phases where it would get to a certain time of the day and for no good reason at all, the water would get sucked out of those bays. And then it would come back.
There is actually a name for it. It is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry Rowland told me all about it last time I talked to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And that's lunar. That's not wind.
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it.
We do have wind-driven tidal fluctuation for sure.
For sure.
Especially on the lower end of the bay.
Mm-hmm.
But we have wind-driven currents that are not wind, like wave created current. Like, yes, wind will, if it's blowing out of the south and blows all that water out of the southern bay, when that rebounds,
it's pushing it all. Yes.
Well, a lot of it's when it rebounds, and all of a sudden you got this ripping current that went from going from the bay to Lake Michigan through the shipping canal, and it will spin 180 degrees the next day and go back the other because it's backfilling that water. So you got a lot of different perceived as similar to a tidal change and currents created by tidal change. It's not your traditional lunar tide, right? But yeah, we've seen it where it's flat calm and all of a sudden the water just starts disappearing.
Yeah, it's a huge body of water. I mean, Lake Michigan and the Bay of Green Bay. I mean, that's a lot of water. And so to think that something wouldn't be going on in relation to it is a little naive, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, I've seen days where, you could fish a 1/4 ounce on the bell buoy and the next day it's 3/4 ounce because the current changes that much from day to day.
And you got to pay attention to it because it repositions the fish on those humps out on the reefs and how it blows around, and it'll influence what the east side of the reef or the west side of the reef, north or south. It'll influence what side I would start on because of how it's blowing everything back over and wrapping around those fingers that are on those points off the shoal.
That's why you look at some of the most consistent areas, as much as me and you don't necessarily like to fish some of them.
Yeah.
You got to know them and you got to be good at them, because no matter what the current or water does, getting pulled out, getting pushed in, anything, those fish can slide and move around and always be there.
The reason I believe in so much of that is fishing around Snake Island.
Well, I didn't want to say where, but that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that's a place where it could be calm on the rest of the bay, and inexplicably it will not be there because the water is moving in a different direction. Same thing when you go ahead and make that turn coming up through from running up to like where the strawberries are, then you have to make that little bit of a right-hander going up towards Ephraim.
Yeah.
I was running there one day. It was the beginning of a fall tournament
where you and I jerkbait fished on the bay side, Adam.
Yeah. We took off. We were running. It was a beautiful day, just small little rollers. You could run full throttle almost all the way trimmed out. And you make this little turn, and it was like deadliest catch. I mean,
it's like there's so much current getting pushed through there that the water's forced up.
It'll stack up. Yeah.
And the wind will drive against that. I mean, that was the time on the first inflatable life jacket I ever wore.
Yeah.
And we actually
that reminds me, I got to give you that inflatable life jacket.
Keep that one. I got other ones. We pulled into a bay as our fish were out on some humps. It was so rough. We pulled into a bay just to kind of get our wits back against this.
The first time I drove through that area you're talking about with Matt Allen, same thing was happening. Like you make that little corner around that point and you're getting sandwiched between the islands. So that wind's getting channeled. It's all bluff to the shore. Got the islands, creating that little funnel. The current's ripping through there, and it's stacking, So I'm slowing down. I'm going up and down these waves, and Matt's looking over the side of the boat. You know how clear it always is there? I don't know. It's like the clearest part of the bay, Green Bay, always. I don't know why it's always so clear there. But he is freaking out. He is slapping me. I'm thinking that like I, hurt his back or something, hit a wave too hard or whatever. And I slow down and he's like, then he's waving like, no, go, 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 go. And I'm like, what the heck? So we duck up into Ephraim, we get into Eagle Harbor. And I'm like, what was that all about? He's like, you didn't realize how close you were to hitting them rocks? Like, I can't believe you didn't bottom out in those rocks. I'm like, dude, it's like 20 feet deep there the whole way, at least.
Yeah.
He's like, no way, no way. We went back through there, coming back down to Fish Creek. And, yeah, I sat down and just idled through it. And he just right on the same track on the GPS. He's looking at my graph, could not believe it. And it was flat calm then when we went back through it. And, yeah. 20-some feet, those boulders look like they're right underneath your skeg.
Yep.
Yeah,
you talk about water funneling like that. That's the desert lakes too. When it gets ripping, you got 20 miles of one long arm. It's just building up into a basin, and you turn the corner out of one arm into the basin, and it's like, oh shit, here we go. It's because it's just stacking up.
That's the thing you can see on the bay is you go out there, it's blowing really hard, and yeah, we get big waves, but on the bay, they can be real far apart. And you can just drive up and over them. They're not real steep on the backsides. They're just big, huge, relative to their height. They're actually pretty shallow rollers. They're way longer than they are tall.
Yeah.
Until the wind blows the right direction.
Yeah.
And it blows against the current, the predominant current in the bay. And then them things start stacking up and then get pushed.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
Man, I've been out there and, people talk about wave heights and stuff, and I've heard some very exaggerated wave heights for the days that we've been out there. But the reason that I think they start saying that is they're taking into account the depth of the swell. So wave height's measured from calm water.
Yeah, from static.
But dude, when that wind starts pushing against that current, it creates these swells that are deeper than the waves are high. Like you come off the top of a wave and drop down forever. Like how? I don't know where that came from or anything else like that, but you've been running with them too. And you get so deep in these swells trying to climb the next one, your motor is starting to pogo in and out of the water because they're so deep in the swell trying to climb up the next wave when they're stacking. It's wild.
And there's so much force there that you like forget getting out of them with a 3-blade. If your boat's set up for top speed with a 3-blade and you're probably only, you're falling 300 RPM shy of your full RPM range because you just want to go fast and your whole shot's terrible. Yeah, well, you're gonna sink your boat up there. Like you need something that bites now, and that's what the 4-strokes are great now because of the torque that they have. But did you fish that year that Scott had to pull in between the ships because I passed out?
I don't know if I did or not.
I think that might have been the first year you did it.
First year I was out. Yeah.
That was the second to last year I did.
Yeah.
Fish it. The Coast Guard was reporting 8-footers at takeoff, and they sent us out.
Well, we canceled the day the year before that, right? Was that the year before?
No, the first year I fished was the year after you guys had your. It was like the first time they ever canceled the day, where the water was coming over the breakwater at the quarry.
There was a dude. They got that boat landing out at the quarry. There was a dude there legit washing his car. The waves were coming in and hitting that breakwater and spilling over the top. He was sitting there washing his car on the edge of the quarry.
And what you don't understand is on a calm day, it's like 20 feet from the top of that breakwater, straight vertical drop to the water. It's 20 feet. Yeah, they called it. Yeah, because I drove up there that day. I wasn't fishing that year. That was
It was gnarly.
Yeah, I've never seen water like that. But
it blows.
Roughest water I've ever seen was you can't see over the top once you drop into the bottom.
Yeah.
And depending on how close they are together, that can get gnarly.
Oh yeah.
It can get real gnarly.
Yeah.
I'd rather drive a 4-footer on the bay than a 4-footer on Bago.
Like when a Bago is one of the bodies of water, I recommend a mouth guard when it's rough.
Yeah, I bet.
It looks like a washing machine. You ever take a old school agitator style washing machine and open the lid while it's running and the water's just going whoosh, whoosh. Yeah, that's what Lake Winnebago looks like when it gets rough.
That's how Mead can get too, depending on which direction it's blowing.
That's what I would think Mead or any of those desert reservoirs you guys got. If you guys got some current, not a lot of current, but you got enough that if the wind blows directly against it, even Gunnersville, the wind's blowing up the gut on Gunnersville, those waves stack tight together and they get tall and steep. But if they're less than 3 feet, a lot of these boats nowadays, you just span them, 2-footer. You can just, some boats you can even run 45 degree. Yeah, you just ride over top of them. I don't think the bay ever gets like that because when the waves, rarely do they stack that close together. Like once it's not a chop anymore and it starts rolling.
Yeah.
I'd almost rather get bigger so that I can like tack them and roll with them, but not.
Exactly.
Because otherwise you just,
I'd rather it be bigger in that situation.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're just getting pounded.
Yeah. The only time we've been able to really run hard and get on top of them was that WAPTA championship when it was blowing straight down the pipe
of the shipping canal.
And I just hammered down and ripped through. That was the only way that was going to.
I got on top of them, ran them hard that day that you took out the ski
I took
boat.
out my parents' boat. Yeah, you sure did. Yeah, I got to see all that bottom. Cowboy Curt.
He didn't know I could drive big water until he saw that.
He was going, wee, wee.
I didn't even know it was him, but he was coming right at me from the boat landing I was going back to. And I pretty much passed you right at the worst part of that ride as far as big waves. And I was finding out how much that 210 would take. He's seen the entire bottom of the boat and the shine off the prop probably 4 times in the span of 100 yards.
Yeah, and 4 waves.
That's fun.
I had a river guy that was with me. I had to show him what. I had to make him not want to come back. We caught him too good, so I was making sure he didn't want to come back. It's making him scared.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, that was that year that you wouldn't even shut down the big motor. You know, you'd be idling around. You'd mark them on the 2D, and you could just sit there and just take it out of gear and drop your drop shot down over the side of the boat, and then the sinker wouldn't even hit bottom. They'd come up and eat it.
Yep. Video games before they were cool.
Yeah. All right. You think we're good?
Unless Marcus got more he wants to talk about.
No, I think we talked about everything we said we were going to talk about.
And more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
He asked me last night. He's like, "Well, do you want to film with so and so right afterwards?" I'm like, no. I like doing this, but if you can believe this, I'm usually pretty talked out after we get done.
I figured I could talk you into an hour and a half episode here and then an hour and a half episode there, but that never happens.
I knew that.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, I can't believe you thought that you were going to have Marcus and I on it and it go only an hour and a half. Were you drinking last night that you came up with that dumb idea?
I was not drinking last night. I figured we could bang out 2 episodes in one day and get ahead of things, but
no, he needed to sleep. He hit a Benadryl and NyQuil.
Exactly.
I'll have Marcus on and it'd only be an hour and a half. More likely to happen with Kyle than it would be Marcus.
Yeah, I know.
We got all kinds of more stories that we could talk about. We could talk about life on the road of trying to, love tournament angling and traveling at the same time.
Next time.
I lived that lifestyle that I thought I wanted. And I give a lot of credit to those guys that are out on the Elite Series, the BPT, the MPFL, that are going out and pre-fishing for the amount of time that they do, and then the intensity of having 2 days if they don't make the cut, or 3 days or 4 days, and trying to put it together for that many days. Man, you see these guys they're like, I just didn't catch him today, and people are like, I can't believe they didn't catch him. How did they not catch him there? Man, you've got 100 of the best anglers pounding away on a body of water for a solid week.
And then have the tournament. Yeah,
and have the tournament during that whole thing. Like, not to mention the physical and the physical toll everybody can kind of get to, rough water, you kind of feel beat up. I mean, practice days you can't wait to get to tournament day if you're practicing hard. You sun up to sundown and hot, wind, everything else like that. You're beat by the time tournament day gets there. Then you got to deal with the mental side and be able to stay in it. I fished one tournament since I've gotten back into this. It was a team tournament, and I fished by myself. And the amount of conversations you can have in your head fishing a tournament by yourself is unbelievable. You go from sucking to being the best fisherman in the world and everywhere in between. Then trying to come up with the best idea.
Sucking in the same day.
Right. And then coming up, trying to make decisions on what it is that you want to do. Like team tournaments, you guys have discussions and everything else like that. Okay, this is going here, so what do you think we should do next?
That's what we see it a lot. I think more one way than the other. You see guys that are really good team anglers together, right? By themselves, they're terrible. Every once in a while, you'll see a guy that's really good on his own that's not good in a team tournament circumstance. I think you're not going to get into all that, what I think goes on there a lot of times. But what I think what happens a lot with these guys that are good in a team tournament, these two guys always fishing team tournaments together, those guys are good at feeding off of each other and keeping each other's head in the game.
100%.
Where it's just like, even if I'm fun fishing, I have a hard time staying focused unless I'm constantly catching them. Because I'm thinking about, maybe this week I'll mow on Thursday and then we'll go fishing Friday. And, you start, the next thing you know, you're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Like you might as well be out there hungover because you're not, your head's not in it.
Yeah.
Where I think for me, there's people that I enjoy fishing with that for whatever reason, I just don't we just never fish well together. Like we've never had that day in the water in a tournament that's like, oh man, you know. But I've had guys that are completely inexperienced, and it's like the more that I'm into trying to educate that person and get him into the mindset, the better I am, because that's putting me in the mindset that I need to be in. Sometimes me and you fishing, it was like, what do we need to talk about? Because I don't need to coach you on anything. And sometimes I just start telling him things that I already know he knows, but I'm just talking myself out loud through the same shit.
Yeah.
You know,
it's really, really hard to do that solo. Like when I'm practicing for a pro-am, by the third day of practice, like this year, I think I'm going to have 5 days of practice on the water before the tournament, just because the tournament falls on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm going to be out there the Saturday prior, and we'll have an off day, or off limits day, but I'll have 5 days of practice. And by the third day of practice, I'm going to find myself going through the motions at some point. Just because it's a lot of time on the water in the heat, you know, trying not to stick fish, you know what I mean? Because where we're going, you stick 2 fish off of a spot, that might be all that was there. Like you really got to cover water at this place. And I think I talked about it in a previous episode. There was one point in time in last year when I was out there where there was a storm kind of rolling in, and you could tell things they're gonna bite. And I was at the point in that practice where I was like, dude, I got to put a hook in something. And I whacked on him for like 45 minutes just to get me out of that mindset of going through the motions. As soon as I started putting hooks in them, I'm like, okay, I'm back in it. Back to practice, back to not sticking fish, back to actually like putting something together for this tournament. And sometimes that's what it takes, but it's really hard to do solo.
What I've been doing, if I'm out fishing, whether it's getting ready for a tournament or just trying to get out and enjoy the day, I'll find myself just kind of going through the motions, just pitching away, put everything down, pull up the big map, look at an area that I think I should go look at, go do some side imaging, take a little boat ride, go do some side imaging, go dial myself back in, and then I'm ready to go again. But yeah, the monotony of just covering water with your line in gets to you.
That's why I like to, like you said with the spot lock earlier, you sit down, put it on spot lock. I sit down, I pull out my cooler. I got a cooler that fits down, just barely fits down in my live well compartment. And I'll have like some, you know, barbecued pulled pork in there and, you know, like some good food.
Yeah.
Or sit down and make the big 1/4 pound peanut butter and jellies. You know,
applying peanut butter with a spatula. That's the way you do it.
And just sit down and enjoy what feels like a nice meal, and then get back at it. Doesn't take you long, but it just gives you a nice little reset. No different than lunch break at work. It takes you 5 minutes to eat, but you sit there for 20 minutes just relaxing.
Practice days are brutal.
They are, dude, especially out there. Like my whole first probably 2 days of practice out there last year, I threw a 9-inch glide bait, shallow, covering water, and I put down. I didn't stick a single one of them, but I put down probably 100 plus waypoints of fish in shallow water, and a lot of those fish are gimme fish. They're going to get caught first day of the tournament, but some of them aren't. Some, especially the bigger ones. And it paid off. For last fish of the first day, I made a stop on the way in on one of those marks that I made and put a 3.5 pound smallmouth the very last cast of the day. Nice. And, you know, the monotony of that was, dude, freaking brutal. Absolutely brutal. Just cast, wind, cast, wind. Oh, there's one GPS. Cast, wind, cast, wind. And that's why, you know, you have to take that break. You have to mix it up.
That was always nice with the Sturgeon Bay Open, because you knew half the field, maybe a third of the field would be up there all week. They were up there the weekend before fishing a tournament, so you cracked on a bunch. Then you'd practice for 2 days, and you knew, though, Wednesday or Thursday, when everybody else was going to show up, one of those days it was going to blow, and you were going to lose a day of practice. And you just, by the time you got to the middle of that week, you were praying for a blow day to just, you didn't have to blow that hard.
No. Just enough to have a severe tavern warning issued.
Yeah.
Yep. Start early, get to bed early. But one thing we didn't talk about I want to touch on, we talked about your change, what you've seen different. We've all remembered the days of, like you said, reeling a fish to the boat, winding them in, not setting a hook. With all this offshore fishing and live scope or mega live or whatever it is that you're using, think about how much faster you could leave a spot or choose that you don't need to fish there anymore with live scope now versus before. Before, you'd want to wind a fish to the boat or shake them off. What size fish are these? Are they the right ones? You stick a couple. If you're good with that live scope, now these guys can tell what size those fish are. Once you know that they're bass, you know how many fish are in that school. And side imaging sort of started that. Like for me, a lot of times there's days where I can, there's 8 fish on that spot. Okay. But now with live, like it's even more.
Yeah.
And that's something so different.
Yeah, I was out a few weeks ago on the chain and saw a school of bass, and it was one of the first times I saw a legit school over deep water and got to watch them react to the jerkbait, like the whole biomass, how it reacted and how it reacted in that clear water when I got the one hooked fish close to the boat, and how quickly that will dissipate that entire school on that body of water.
Yeah.
It was wild because I got that fish on a jerkbait, made short work of it, got it in, unhooked.
Gone.
Blown out.
Gone.
And you're not dealing with like fish on a shell bed or a
No.
ledge or something. You're dealing with a wolf pack of
Super
3
nomadic.
to 10 feet, super nomadic, feeding on pelagic bait.
Yeah.
They're 10 feet down and 80 feet of water.
Yeah. It was awesome to watch.
And heartbreaking at the same time.
And
We used to have days out there. Remember that day we were in the middle of the round chasing them? They were busting on bait so much that there was smallmouth, 3 to 4 pounds, clearing 4 to 5 feet out of the water, busting on bait. You would get to within casting distance with an LV 500, and they were gone. And then they'd pop up over here and pop up over there.
Yeah, whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now with live, you can see how much that happens even more.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, I catch one every once in a while. Yeah, because you bust up a school every time, unless they're really chewing.
That happens a lot here. These fish will get out in open water chasing threadfin around, and really the trick is you got guys trying to chase them around like 100% on the trolling motor. They come up over here, they're hauling ass to them, make a cast. They come up over there, 100%, haul ass over, make a cast at them. The smartest thing to do in that situation is, where do those fish want to be? Where is their best ambush point? Because a lot of here, you're talking 50 foot of water, and there's contours on the bottom affecting where those fish are positioning and pushing those fish, pushing that bait to a certain location. Just stay in one spot. They're going to circle around and come right back to you, but be ready for it. And with forward facing sonar, you can see them coming. It's made a big difference.
Yeah, I think when you're chasing them, they get the bait. It's the bait. I think you affect the bait more than you do the fish. The boat affects the bait, pushes the bait down. Yeah, I think in the summertime here, it's like, where are they going to pin it up against a steep break? Be there. Catch the fish that are busting on bait that don't bust the surface, and just sit and wait. But yeah, it's, we've added, especially on alpaca chain, your bait hitting the water will mess it up. So like throwing you like everything, if I took you there and filmed it, everything you know about bass fishing would make you go, I need to throw a super spook. I need to throw a shower blow. That bait hits the water, gone. They are gone. Really, in that instance, a lot of times the best thing to get bit on is like a Zoom super fluke. But you can't get close enough to cast it at them unless you just happen to be in the right spot at the right time. So you almost have to have it laying there with the right distance of line out, ready to cast, so that you can just drop the rod in your hand, grab it, whip it out there, and basically you just reel in your other rod and then pick up the other one, reel the fish in, and eat it. But it's a complete luck, you know, unless you're willing to basically like tree stand hunt them, and I'm going to sit here and wait for the fish to come to me, and especially there, that might not ever happen.
Right.
But
it's why we play the game, boys.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, Marcus, thank you for coming on. It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to get you on here. You're busy. You're all over the place, but thanks for being available.
I appreciate you having me on. It was good talking to you, Adam.
Good seeing you again.
He isn't going to thank me.
I'm glad Curtman made a appearance for sure.
Yeah.
Glad we got to hear that story.
I give him a hard time, but we've been through some thick and we've been through some thin, and I appreciate it. Appreciate a lot that he's done for me, and yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing now is it's got a lot of nostalgic value, and it's people that I miss, and I don't want to keep doing that. I think the best way to pay tribute to some of these guys, you know, Big Chad and Timmy, and there's been other guys too in my life that have passed way too soon, is go out and live and do the things you enjoy and enjoy doing it. You know, you can have a bad tournament day, bad fishing day, and you have a choice, let it piss you off or still enjoy the amount of time that you had out there, and the people that you get to do it with and have conversations like this, and these relationships that you form through these activities that there's mutual love for. It's like none other. And just really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you guys and hang out and talk fishing here at the Bass Fishing Dive Bar.
That's if you got someone that you want to fish with, go fishing with them. I was one of those guys that used to, you know, look at. I got, why are you doing fishing with him? Why are you showing him this? What are you showing? I get if you're trying to, you know, keep things a secret. Well, go find somewhere else to fish. Go fish somewhere that there isn't tournaments or something. Because whether it's this podcast, whether it's going fishing somewhere, I mean, I never got to fish with Tim or fish with Big Chad. But fishing with the people that I know that did fish with them, that's what I hear about all the time. Man, if you could have went fishing with them. Can you imagine me and Big Chad fishing my punching lake back when it was good?
Mm.
You know, but God forbid I do that, because then he might start doing that on Shawano. And I already can't beat him on Shawano. So why would I take and show him what I'm doing on Shawano on another lake? I ain't going to do that.
Yeah.
But can you imagine the fun that would have been?
Yeah.
Go there with him?
Yeah, we there's so many things in the world today we're so guarded about, and you know, we let things that really shouldn't make a difference get in the way of doing things that we should be doing, and
with the people we want to do them with.
Yeah. Don't let great be the enemy of good, you know.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, that's a good way to end it.
Yeah.
All
Cheers,
right.
brother.
Cheers.
Cheers. We'll see you guys later.
See ya.
Peace.